think it's about to go. Hold up, I'll let you know. It look like it's about to go.
No problem.
Finally. There we go. I gotta let me X out of this right here. I'm hearing my echo. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You're clear.
All right, now I gotta find you. There we go. And we got Asar Imhotep in the building. This is you listening to the Real Nordic Black YouTube channel. This is Rob G, the host, and we got like I said, Asar Imhotep. To those that don't know him, he's a African researcher or Africana researcher. Maybe he can explain that little deal later on if there's a difference. A poet, a linguist, computer programmer. Uh, what other titles you got on there? I know you're a lecturer. He's spoken at plenty of a numerous amount of conferences. The 30th annual Sheikh Anta Diop conference, Science versus Mythology conference, Scholars Town Hall meeting. You might have seen him at Saw Netter, Black News 102, Saw Netter Studios. That's where I've discovered you on Saw Netter and the Amon Ra squad and Dagger squad and all those other squads. And also he has a website where he also teaches courses, I believe. Am I correct? And he has his YouTube channel as well. And I know I'm missing something. He's got, well, major. He has a lot of books, a lot of works. Some of them I can't pronounce. So if I screw it up, you can correct me. Nesut BT, meaning king, in ancient Egyptian, a lesson in paranami or paronymy.
Paronymy.
Paronymy. That's a linguistic type of term, I guess. And leadership, a contribution to the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet. That's a question I want to get into. The Bacala. I don't have it in any order, so I'm sure they're all over the place. From your newest to your oldest works, this is all scattered. I'm just naming off a bunch of them. The Bacala of North America, the Living Sons of Vitality, Exodus, Internal Reflections and Conversations with the Sun. And I guess your poet name used to go by the Black Lotus, right?
Correct.
Or you still okay?
Yeah.
And of course, I can't forget where is the love? How language can reorient us back to love's purpose. Aluja, both volume 1 and 2. Aluja, volume 1, Rescue, Reinterpretation, and the Restoration of Major Egyptian Themes. Volume 2, Siena Nitu. Siena Into. Okay. Yes. Religion and Philosophy. And like you said, that's where you picked up where volume 1 left off. And from the books I name, I actually want to get just a little bit into kind of each one on what they're about. So we're going to kind of get a crash course, if you will, or we're going to try to get to know you real quick in the things that you've done. But I would like to start out and ask you how you got into this and what's your background? You said you're from Houston, Texas, correct? And you're
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, how did you get into the subject that that I'm talking about, like linguistics or African research and things like that? What was the thing that kind of sparked your interest to start into these type of studies, like linguistics and things like that? Like some of the Black leaders, like Sheikh Anta Diop or Maboli or.
All right.
Could you get
No
into?
problem.
Yeah. Well, is it a delay? I just want to know. Is it a delay?
No.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah. You sound good. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for inviting me to your platform to
Likewise.
speak with your to speak with your audience. and to share what little I may have accumulated over the years.
You're being humble now.
and dialogue with the community. But to answer your question more specifically, I was originally born in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
And military family. So both my mom and dad were in the Navy. And my mother's from San Antonio, Texas, and my dad is from New Orleans. Actually, he was from Opelousas. Well, I have a lot of family in Opelousas,
okay,
and then I have a lot of family in New Orleans. So
okay.
Even on my mother's side, my mother's dad's side is all New Orleans.
Okay.
As well.
My mother's side, my mother's side is, so we have a connection there. On my mother's side, all of her family is from New Orleans. Yeah, definitely.
So so from there to New Orleans, to Houston, and that's where I spent, most of my childhood. And then like my high school years, I lived in San Antonio. But from San Antonio, I went to college in San Marcos, and then back to Houston, where I spent most of my time, and then in Philly. So I moved to Philly. So I've been there for like the past.
I figured I heard, Philly somewhere. And
yeah.
I know it wasn't a figment of my imagination. I thought I heard you in some video talk about Philadelphia.
Yeah. So Philadelphia is where I reside, and but I'm here back in Texas for like a contract, so I'm going to be here for a few months, and then I'm back in Philly.
Gotcha.
But how ultimately I got into Africana studies is just simply living and existing in spaces where there was a lot of racial hostility.
Tell me about it.
And a lack of studies of Black people. So it's just a curiosity of where were we in history,
right,
and how come every school I go to, is dominated by Eurocentric curriculums.
Correct.
And so, that sparked an interest at a very young age. And it is when I went to college that, a lot of new information starts, saying coming your way. And at Southwest Texas State University, there was no Black Studies program or department there. So you couldn't take any classes about Black Studies.
Okay.
So before I got there in 98, there were a group of students who started just different organizations to try to supplement as best as they could, knowledge and just things about Black, because, right. Southwest Texas State is a very, very white.
Yeah. Backwoods. Yeah.
And so there was a group of young men who belonged to a fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha.
Okay.
They got kicked off the yard for pledging.
Okay.
And so, but they didn't want to stop the programming that they were doing. So the men who, the organization itself got kicked off campus, but the students were still on, saying as Alpha Men. So what they did is just created a new organization, one called Kumasi.
Okay.
And Kumasi,
you were about to say Umoja, right?
No, that's an organization that I created at the University of Houston.
Right, I remember.
Yeah, so that's something. But that was inspired by what I saw, because I transferred schools. So I went to my first 2 years. I went to Southwest Texas State University.
Okay, and that wouldn't be no, that's not a HBCU, is it? No, it's a public.
Yeah. So, and then I went to the University of Houston. And so Umoja was inspired by what we were doing in Kumasi. And so Kumasi, I think we met on Wednesdays. And like, it's just a self-study group, and we would have a reading list, and we would bring in speakers like Anthony Browder, Dr. Ben,
The usual
Naim
suspects.
Akbar,
No doubt.
who was hot in the 90s,
Right.
And so this is where you're starting to get introduced to a lot of the topics of the day. And so, of course, as a result of the Black Athena text that was written in 86 or 89, one of those.
That was Martin Bernal. That's right.
Yes. So there was this heavy onslaught of in academia of attacks on Black Athena and simultaneously Afrocentric scholarship.
Right.
So I come in, kind of on that tail end of many of the battles. So a lot of the conversation is still happening in the social media of the time, and so as a young freshman coming in, I'm looking at and listening to all the debates on the Blackness of the ancient Egyptians. And so it is, and I know this is a roundabout way, but it's a straight line to your.
My people on my channel is like, I'm finally, Robert, you're allowing your guests to speak. I've been learning. I'm progressing.
So there were debates going on whether the ancient Egyptians were Black, and African or not. And so you mentioned Sheikh Anta Diop earlier, or Sheikh Anta Diop. And, he was a prominent figure in the debates because one of his major arguments was that, of course, the ancient Egyptians are Black African people, and not only that.
Now, for the audience, you know what I mean? Because for the audience to know that he had a big, in the 1970s, correct? And UNESCO African World, he had a symposium or something like that where
1974, the Cairo Symposium,
1974, where he was alongside Theophile Obenga was there, wasn't he? And then there was others, and there was countless, amount of people. But this is what you're talking about, referring to, correct?
Yeah, just in the whole body of work. So I think he introduced this concept in an earlier text, but it became prominent at that symposium in 1974. But not until 1977, when he published his, genetic relationship text, where he's doing a lot of linguistic comparisons between Wolof and ancient Egyptian and, and Coptic.
Was that in his book, Myth or Reality? That one? Or
no. This has yet to be translated in English.
Oh, that's right. Okay. But that's before the Mercer Cook's translator, was it?
I think so. Yeah, because this was, well, I don't know. No. I think around that time is when that text was being translated into English and published in English, because that text is actually from like the 50s or 60s of in the original French.
Gotcha.
Of the So in that text, in his 1977 work more particularly, he makes the argument that the ancient Egyptians, again, were Black African people, and they named their country after their Blackness. And so there's a ancient Egypt was known by many names, even by the Egyptians themselves. And so one of the prominent names is the word which we pronounce as Kemet. And it is believed that the root of the word Kemet is a a word Kim that means black in the ancient Egyptian language. Now, there's primarily two schools of thought. One believes that the word Kemet refers to the color of the soil, the fertile soil that is left when the Nile rises and leaves its deposits on the banks of the Nile. And then there's the school, which was initiated by Sheikh Anta Diop, that the word Kemet refers to the skin color of the inhabitants. Right. So that was a prominent debate when I was coming into school. And so I'm looking online and I'm listening to the debates, and it just got me curious as to, well, what's the controversy here? And does this really mean? So now I'm looking at the methodologies of each argument.
Right.
And I'm not being satisfied by any of the arguments.
And speaking of the methodology, that's why I like your approach to things, because you always talk about mathematics and scientific approaches, and the methodology is so important to you and your team and things like that. So that's why I definitely follow you there. But yeah.
But yeah, it's from that debate, because of course Martin Bernal comes in and he seems to agree with the Black African folks, at least on this point, that the ancient Egyptians were Black African folks, right? And so, given the nature of who he is and his tenure, they couldn't have someone that prominent making those kind of claims. So the attacks were on him fast. And so
it almost seems like when, especially back then, they like we cherry picking with scholars, that white scholars that we,
exactly. So that's what got me curious. And then when I said, you know what, I'm going to put my hat in the ring, and I'm going to try to figure out ultimately the solution, because the on the Afrocentric side, they were really dependent on this meaning of the word Kemet to help prove the blackness of the ancient Egyptians. And so,
now, I didn't mean to. When you say Afrocentric, you know how Afrocentricity, when they say that, they give it a derogatory kind of term.
Yeah.
And things like that. Is there?
And we should never let anyone try to demean that, because it's a proper way. Afrocentricity, first and foremost, values the worldview and the perspective of African people in describing themselves in their life. So the priority is the Africans themselves, Africans as agents, that they aren't marginalized, like they don't come in history on the margins of European, history and the discovery of themselves, And so when we're talking about, anthropology and culture and language and worldview and things of this nature, it's the African people themselves who have the priority. We center our analysis based on their history and experience. And that wasn't the case, for a long time in academia in regards to Africa. The European scholars would come and see Africans, and they'll just interpret. Don't ask them what's going on, what's their worldview. Just make up stuff, and then be, are experts. They're having speaking engagement, book deals, all this other kind of stuff, getting paid, being experts. You're never an expert. The people are always the expert on their own lives.
For sure.
You're just a reporter.
Right.
And we always got to remember that as scholars, if you're analyzing, people, especially other than your own.
Correct.
you're never an expert. They grew up in it. They're the experts. They're the ones who have the ancestors that they call upon in the oral histories and the traditions and the movements and the ways and the dance and the
Most
language
definitely.
and the attitudes and stuff to this nature. You're just observing as an outsider. And
Correct.
so this is the fundamental thing about Afrocentricity. And also it's a research method, and especially how do we locate the author of a text? How do we know their perspective? You can tell by the language that they use. So if they're
That's
using
heavy.
words like Negroes, African people don't call themselves Negroes. That's not the
Right.
blacks, and it's a way. So it's about orientation
Correct.
and coming to coming to
At,
the center of
at
analysis. Go ahead.
at the same time, though, I total agreement with you. At the same time, though, playing devil's advocate, when I always tell people, when you read and look at history, you can even learn certain truths through racists. They will
Mm-hmm.
drop some gems in there.
Yeah.
Like when I took Caribbean civilization class, they were that with what's his name, Casas, the friar, the monk, when he was going into the Americas with Columbus and them. And he was a
Delicasas
De
or
La
something.
Casas, Bar, you know what I mean?
Bartholomew. I think it's
Barto
Bartholomew Delicasas. Yeah.
There you go. And anyway, speaking of Bartholomew, that's one of my family's name. One of the mayors of New Orleans is part of my family, the former
Mhm.
Bartholomew. But anyway, uh, even through his work, you can see, or other people's work, you can see some nuggets of truth there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if they couldn't describe exactly what it was and they didn't understand what it was, as far as the natives perspective, they they drops some gems, some truths in there. You always can find truth in some sort of truth in there, even though they distort it or misinterpret it.
Yes. And
You
so
know,
Afrocentricity allows you to develop a skill set to be able to properly analyze text and to know what is valuable in the text and what to discard in regards to a description of African people. So we rely on, because African people didn't write in a way that allows for history to be written like we do in the modern
and
times. And so
right,
we have to rely on Arabic or
French,
Portuguese
yeah,
and French in these encounters.
right,
So in a historical sense. So matter of fact, and I can't remember the name of the text, but Teofilo Benga has a text. It's a kind of a thin white book,
okay,
and it's just a gang of sources, just little excerpts
hmm.
from colonial entities who first encountered various people in Central and in West Africa.
Okay,
And so it's originally like in Portuguese and stuff to this nature, or French, and
right,
it was translated into English.
okay,
Saying for us, and it's a very valuable text.
right.
But it's an example to your point. I forgot the people, and if I was in Philly, I could reach to the back and get my
Yeah, I
book.
feel you.
It's
I
right,
feel you. No,
right
it's
off the
all
back.
good.
But
But
they
it's funny you say that, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of ancient, when you get into the studies of ancient Egypt and all those things, most of
Mhm.
those aren't in English at first. Those came way,
Yeah,
way later. Uh,
exactly. And like this one example was talking about this one Central African group where essentially they were talking about the equality of men and women in the society and the particular roles. So, for example, it was the man's job to go out and hunt and bring home the meat,
mm,
but it was the woman's job to grow the plants and the food in the society. And so like this gives you some insight, at least from their perspective, you know, this notion like the man is supposed to bring home everything and do everything. That's not the case. Women worked and contributed to the household, and that was the nature of the society. And so, you know, you do what you're capable of doing, but everything contributes to the wealth, you know, saying of the home. And so it gives you some insight into it, at least in this area, you know, male female relationships. You know, it goes deeper into the nature of kingship and things of this nature, and societal roles, governance, and stuff to that nature.
Speaking of societal roles, would you always hear in the conscious community about Africa being a maternal, and you know, as if they didn't have any paternal patriarchal family. You heard you
Yeah,
understand what I'm saying? You heard that in a big, you know, a lot of those arguments by some people that don't kind of do enough studying, I say, but
yeah, that's not the
we have the tendency sometimes in the black community and conscious community or whatever to kind of paint a lot of things with a broad stroke when it
yeah.
comes to
Africa is not a
Africa,
country.
for sure.
You
Yeah,
know, like that's first and foremost.
right,
And so, you know, there are a few, and I think people are getting it mixed up. The difference between matriarchal and matrilineal. And, you know, a lot of societies were matrilineal,
got you.
but they weren't ruled and governed by women, you know. So that's something that has to be, you know, clarified in our discussions. Men generally ran the society, but in most cases there were women in high positions and in councils of elders.
Right.
It just kind of depend on the mode of
You
production of the society,
right.
the
And you getting on something because I'm gonna be talking about that more on, you know, in future interviews on the exact point that you're getting at right there. Yeah.
yeah. And so, you know, because it's the role of the men to provide and protect the society itself,
Right.
you know, but it really just depends on where you are and what time in history, and especially their mode of production. So people who are defined in essence by their hunter-gathering mode of production, you know, is the society is going to be a little bit different than if you have a centralized government like, you know, the Luba Society or the Kikongo Kingdom, or
Right.
the Bakongo Kingdom, I mean. And versus a nomadic pastoralist group.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like all of these things exist in Africa historically, and you know we have to kind of respect that and understand that first,
Right.
and then start to answer the questions. But no, it's not. You can't paint Africa with a broad stroke and be accurate in most cases. So yeah. So, but you know, getting back to your question, is from that with Kemet that I realized that I had to learn hieroglyphs and study the language, because the etymology of the word Kemet is a linguistic argument. And so that's what forced me to sit down and study, you know, language, because at the time I'm going to school. Well, at first I was in accounting. That was my
Okay.
perceived major, but
Yeah.
then it switched to computer information systems. And
Okay.
so I'm just coding and dealing with software and stuff to that nature.
Gotcha.
But I have this strong interest over here
Right. Right.
in ancient Egypt, and
Right.
by this time I've transferred to the University of Houston, and there is a Black Studies program there though. So I'm minored in African American studies. Um, I actually double minored. I don't even know if really one of the minors count, but And the reason why I say this is because when I transferred, they told me I needed to take Black Studies courses. And I was thinking that, the courses in African American studies would satisfy my my degree program.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. So what they didn't tell me is that African studies and African American studies are two different things. I'm just thinking Black studies, like all that fits in the Black studies.
Right,
And so I took 12 hours of African American studies in the African American studies program, and none of them counted towards my degree.
Okay.
So I had to go back and take African studies courses, because at that time I was still in business, because I was going to be an accountant at first.
Okay.
And so, it's not until like my junior year or so I decided, you know what, because, I also had this deep love and interest for software development and computers and networking and stuff. And that's all I was doing really, just in life, like I was building websites and apps.
That's what I learned through some of your talks. Eventually, it was like this wasn't even his primary thing at first, and
Exactly.
how much you contributed to the field is wow. Yeah.
And so
which we're gonna get into. So for the people, but we just still introducing the guy.
So yeah, I switched, saying majors, and then and they didn't even require me to have a minor once I switched to CIS.
Okay.
So and because
it has so much in that major, so much study.
So
I guess.
Is like
it's not like a liberal arts major.
Exactly. So I was in school for a while.
No disrespect to those, but
But so because I was in business, they required you to do an international study. So you'd be dealing with international business and stuff like that. Gotcha. So you can either take Asian studies, South American studies, or African studies.
Yeah.
And so of course I chose African studies. And so I got additional info and things from that. So I've always, even while I was doing computer information systems and things of that nature, I was still plugged in to Africana studies.
Right.
And so, but it was, matter of fact, I was having a discussion with one of my professors who, matter of fact, he just passed away about a month ago. His name is Dr. James Conyers, who was the head of the program there at U of H. And at that time, he just came in to replace another good brother, Dr. Jelani Williams, who had passed in, I think it was 2001 or 2002. And so when he came and took over the program, he graduated from Temple University in Philadelphia. And me and him was having a discussion about Egypt and Kemet. And he was like, you have a lot of good ideas.
Right.
What I want you to do is organize your thoughts. I want you to write a paper, and then I want you to present it at this African American symposium.
Okay.
Right, that we're having here at U of H, in a few months.
I think you about to answer the other question I was about to ask you. What kind of kick-started you? What kicked off?
So this is the event that kicked off more so the academic thrust.
You had somebody to inspire you and assist you and encourage you to do that. That's
yes. And so this wasn't one of those situations where I wrote an abstract and submitted it into the conference. He was over the conference, so he was like, I'm just gonna put you here, and he told me, it's going to be nothing but PhDs and people working on their PhDs at this. I'm still an undergrad. So they're going to give you critiques and all of this other kind of stuff. So he's seeing the potential, and he's like, I'm gonna throw you to the wolves,
Oh man,
and then I'm gonna let you,
man.
saying go and
I know
build
you
from
were.
that.
I know you was nervous, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I loved it,
yeah.
and
Right.
so I wrote my paper. The paper was titled "What's in the Name: The Meaning of Kemet." So this was
Got
in
you.
2002.
Okay.
And at that conference, this is where I first met Dr. Milana Karanga,
All
Dr.
right.
Malefe Asante,
All right.
Dr. Mario Beatty.
No, now we gotta pause on some of these because some of these names you dropping, the audience may not know some of them for
Okay.
sure, but some of them don't. The first one you said, Malana Karinga, he wrote.
Yes.
That's the one that
Create.
wrote a lot about the different holidays, right? In the
Yeah.
European
He's the one who
holidays and
created
the
Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa. There you
Yeah.
go, Kwanzaa.
And then Malefe Kitty Asante, he's the one who
Right.
created the first uh, African American Studies PhD program at Temple University,
Okay.
which is now the Africology, and created a whole different field, which
Right.
is Africology.
Right. Right. I was gonna ask
Doc,
about what that was, Africology, Africana,
yeah,
these different things, but we can get at it later. But yeah.
yes. And so, Africology is simply the African-centered study of African history, and culture.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so, it's a whole methodology and
Behind that.
worldview perspective in
Got
regards
you.
to that.
Okay.
So, um,
Malefi
yeah,
Asante, you
yeah,
met, and
there was a number of saying folks that many may not know, but a key person was Dr. Mario Beatty,
mm,
who is at Howard University
that,
currently,
now
and the
that
president of ASCAC.
now I'm gonna get into that later,
Yeah,
and I think you know why.
yes. So,
Yeah,
um, he's instrumental because he's a student of Obenga, right?
got
And
you.
so he learned meta and how to read hieroglyphs from Dr. Teofilo Obenga.
No, no,
And
Mauro Betty, he's still a professor at Howard, right?
yes,
Okay,
correct.
got you.
So I think at the time he was at Brown University.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That
and
isn't that still considered an Ivy League school, right? Brown? No,
I
what?
think so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was there at first, I think.
Mm,
Um, and so Dr. Um, Dr. Conyers introduces me to Mario Beatty, and then I'm giving my spiel and all of this. He's like, well, you need to talk to Dr. Teofilo Benga. Here's his number. And
mm,
so at the time, Dr. Teofilo Benga was at San Francisco State University on the
okay.
West Coast of the United States. And so, he went
That's like Sheikh Anta Diop's #1 disciple right there.
exactly,
Right, right.
and so he when I called the number and talked to Obenga, I told him that I was in school for computer information systems and coding and all that. And he said that you should try your hand in linguistics because you would be good at it. And, little did I know that, linguistics, again, it will become such an important tool in my arsenal in understanding African people. And so kind of all of those events kind of culminate into pushing me along a particular path, if I've answered your question correctly.
Mm, mm. I can tell you, you're definitely one of the few people out of, and don't take this wrongly, out of Saw Netter's stable that I learned so much from, that came out of that. um, um, yeah. I remember I heard you say a statement of when somebody asked you a similar question, and you said, what got you to into this was that you wanted to recover the African mind prior to the invasion of Europeans and Arabs,
Yeah.
and I like that.
Matter of
Um,
fact, I've given myself a title And what so when people ask me like, what do? I simply say that I am an ancestral memory recovery specialist.
Wow, that's what's up. That's deep right
You
there
know,
now. That's deep right there. That's what's up.
and so that's how I describe, saying myself in this particular work.
Talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome. Man, that's deep. I,
Yeah.
I see one of the symbols that you had of the pyramid or whatever with mathematics, linguistics, logic, and then you saying making the world safe from pseudo scholarship. That was cool, right there.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I have a mathematician by the name of Akil Parker, who I'm going to be interviewing on tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Probably around this time.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see you got some nice interviews going yourself. I see that you interviewed two Egyptologists, I think Sally Ann and also
Sally Ann Ashton, Dr. Sally Ann Ashton.
Ashton, and then also Vanessa Davies.
You're correct.
Right. And actually, you couldn't I couldn't have got you at a perfect time because I myself am going to interview on the 30th of April an Egyptologist as well.
Oh, okay.
By the name of Dr. Karakuni.
Okay.
You heard of her?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, she used to be like a rock star out there. She used to be on the was that late night show she used to be going on. I forgot the name of this guy from Ireland or Scotland or somewhere. But she has that book called she talks about Hatshepsut a lot. And then she has When Women Rule the World.
Okay, yes,
yeah. Think higher now. Yeah, Dr. Karakuni.
Because she's the one who's had a number of the specials.
Yep.
On
On the documentaries.
Yeah, I'm familiar with her. Yes.
Most definitely. Did you a lot of brothers don't know that she, and I believe my information is correct because I'm going to ask her about it. She actually she was a professor at Howard, I think. I believe so at one point in time. And not only that, here's another gem I'm gonna drop. One of her students was Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
She even put up some of the work he did. So I'm going, and a lot of brothers don't even know that. And I'm going to drop that. I'm going to drop that jewel on them on my next interview. So use a precursor to her.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up. But so let's talk about some of the questions or what. Well, you talk about linguistics. You into the historical comparative. You said the historical comparative linguistics method that you.
Yeah, the historical
comparative method where you take Niger Congo languages and compare them to try to link them with ancient Egypt or whatnot. Could you
it's
I know I overly simplified it or I got it wrong. I don't know.
No. You're
I'm
good.
Correct. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's
like
going back.
Methodological processes are different tools to
to answer certain questions. So like you mentioned the logo that I created, with the pyramid, basically with mathematics, logic, and linguistics.
Right.
And what I try to help people to understand is that historical comparative linguistics is mathematics.
Right.
A lot of people think mathematics is simply the calculations, of numbers, but it's more than that. It's about logical arguments. It's about the discovery of patterns. And that's what the historical comparative method allows you to do. It is a process to discover reoccurring non-accidental patterns in the possible relationship between vocabulary, morphology, and things of that nature between two or more languages.
Gotcha.
And once you have established patterns, consistent and reoccurring patterns in these different languages, you have to conclude logically that there is a certain type of relationship between these two languages. Now, the question is the patterns we see the result of inheritance, meaning that these features were inherited from a common parent that, split off over the years and became these distinct entities?
And that's what Sheikh Anta Diop was
Was
into a
doing,
lot,
yes,
doing a lot
with Willoff in ancient Egyptian.
with Willow, yeah, right.
And Willoff being his native language in Senegal.
Right.
And so you have that possibility. Then you have the possibility that it's just a coincidence that, these alleged patterns, exist. But the historical comparative method really eliminates chance as the result. So if you're seeing consistent patterns in all areas of vocabulary and grammar and syntax and all this other kind of stuff, at this point you can't argue that it's a coincidence. So
right.
that's the whole point of the historical comparative method, to eliminate. So
you just can't be good at Sudoku and just jump up in there and
no. And then there's the issue of, well, are these patterns here because of contact and a lot of borrowing from, language A to language B,
right.
and so it's the relationship between mathematics, linguistics, and logic is the tools. And so the software development and computer programming has given me a gift to, and I understand now why Obinga said you would be good at linguistics, because
got you.
There's
but you kind of had that skill relationship. Yeah, that skill set would be good in that field.
Exactly.
Because it deals with, like you said before, it deals with a lot of precision.
Yep.
And accuracy and things like that, and identifying things.
Because mathematics itself is a language. And I mentioned the brother that I'm going to be interviewing on tomorrow morning,
right?
Because I want to show that excuse me.
Sorry.
A lot of pollen out here.
Out here too, big time. Yeah.
That there is because we're concerned with, okay, well, how do we teach this stuff to younger folks? And how do we get them interested in mathematics, in logic and such of this nature? And what I'm finding is that you have to understand that there's a relationship between mathematics and language. And if we can teach mathematics through the lens of linguistics, then we may be able to capture more people and have them understand, the usage and the symbols and things, because they're learning how to think abstractly, they're learning how to speak another language. And so I think that people will grasp mathematics better if they learn another human language and learn how to play music. Good point. Like a lot of mathematicians and scientists will tell you that, a lot of them play music. Like you'd be surprised. And there's a relationship between music and math.
Like John Coltrane and some of these other greats, I'm sure.
Yep. Matter of fact, so yeah, it's an important tool that I use when trying to recover the memory of African people.
Now, what would you say to the people that sometimes think that in doing that you are trying to resurrect, which is in a way is a good thing, but not resurrect, but rewrite the naysayers that try to say you're trying to rewrite history or revisionist history, revise it, or
Mm.
um, feel good history, and or or make it up,
Uh,
make up new languages type of thing. Uh,
yeah, like
and we'll we'll get into like the Bacala thing,
mhm.
for example, and some other things like that. What would you kind of say to that? Because I try to talk about that other side of the argument a little bit, you know.
Yeah, it's well, people have to first understand that I'm a scientist first. And as a scientist, you only have one obligation, and that is to the truth. Regardless to what your politics are, regardless to what your worldview is, all that matters is the truth. You could decide what you want to do with the information after you've established that these, in fact, are facts. But, you don't want to hinder your path to the truth by letting your history and your politics and
Emotion
your feelings block you from that. So I get into a lot of debates because a lot of people just don't understand that aspect of what I do,
right,
because they feel like you can't ask that question because you're going against, for
right,
example, Sheikh Anta Diop when it
right,
comes to the Kemet question.
right.
Well, I don't have an obligation to Sheikh Anta Diop. I have an obligation to the truth.
Brother,
Regardless,
brother,
he's a go ahead.
a movie I just saw the other day that kind of answers a lot of those questions. A little bit older movie, not too old, with Stephen Hawking's The Theory of
Oh
Everything.
yeah, yeah.
When my man was in physics, when he was against he was talking about black holes and all this, and then he
Mm.
was going against it, and they were acting like he was going to get all emotional because he changed his mind. He was like, no, that's what we're supposed to do. That's science, that's physics.
Exactly.
He's like, I don't go into beliefs. That's not me. That's not my
Yeah.
era. I follow the evidence or whatever I think it leads. So he is almost like they try to get a rise out of him on several occasions, and he was like, that's great. And so that I get what you say.
Yeah, like people think this is a religion. This is scholarship.
Right, for sure, for sure.
It's not about
It's
like information changes, or I should say theories change as a result of new evidence. And as a scientist, as a researcher, you have to be willing, like, I'm not attached to any of this information.
mm,
You know,
there you go.
it's because you can't be, because if you are, then when new
You gonna be in a world of
stronger
hurt.
evidence comes along
Right,
that counters something that you are holding on strong to,
right.
then you probably won't be um you probably won't deviate or abandon that outdated belief
Information.
or worldview.
Mm,
And so
mm.
this is something that we accuse a lot of religious folks of, because of course that's
Good point. Good point. Hmm.
all the evidence in the world can say, no, this wasn't wrong. Well, I have faith, and this is that. Like, no, science is not faith.
Mm,
It it's a phrase that I always say is demonstration beats conversation.
mm.
And so once it has been demonstrated that this in fact is the reality, as a honest person, as a person of integrity, you go with where the evidence leads you, and you have to be willing to abandon and or adjust a previously held belief. And I've had to do that throughout the
I,
course
I've definitely,
of my
yeah.
journey.
And I witnessed some of that right there. And
Mm,
that, my friends, is a segue into some of the first. questions that I say plague the Black community that I want to get into. Excuse me. You talked about religion and spirituality. I know you had like a talk, or you made a post on, I think, YouTube about African spiritual. Let me see if I can find it. African spiritualism, spookism, or whatnot. Could you get into that, because that is one major thing that I've always noticed, where I hear people in the Black conscious community that they kind of, you were kind of different. You were differentiating something with spookism, African spiritualism, or some sort. What was that?
Yeah. I mean, I've had several conversations along those lines. So hopefully,
what is your current view on that?
I have to remember totally what the nature of the conversation, because we've had several conversations along those lines, and so some slightly different nuances.
Like for example, I brought a lady, the second interview that I had, the one before you. People talked about religion and spirituality, so I was like, well, let me bring in a Black atheist, and one of the kind of the most kind of seen atheists, or known atheists, that or popular atheists that are Black, that I thought, and I brought her in for an interview or whatnot. But and so, and hence I'm bringing you in to talk about Kemet and Egyptology, Egypt, and Medu Neter, and also spirituality and things like that. But because some tend to say, well, that's non-African to not believe in God, and I know you heard that before. And then they said, well, is to be an atheist is non-African because we see spiritual in a different way. It's more tied into nature, which in some ways I do believe that. You know what I mean? And like I spoke to with this atheist in my last interview, that and me and her agreed that I believe, I like some of the stories in African in the African stories more so than the European stories, of course, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not legends or myths in those as well. So that's why I want to know, what is your take on that? Well, I never really asked you, are you atheist, agnostic, humanist, or whatnot? I don't mean to corner you, and because I never really never really heard you kind of come out with. Am I correct? You never really came out with your yeah.
And I understand what you're asking, and
you didn't really claim nothing. That's what I'm saying, my brother. Like me, I can say I call myself I'm learning some new labels, I guess. I call myself an atheist, agnostic, secular humanist, things like that. Only because I believe secularism. I believe church and state should be separate. But go ahead.
Yeah, I want to kind of jump to your previous question.
Yeah.
And because it leads to that answer to that question.
I got ADD. I'm all over the place. My bad, brother.
No, so we got to understand first and foremost that what is African is simply that which African people do. It's not grandiose. It's if you're an African and you do something, it's African. That's it.
I like that, brother.
That is whether it's good or bad.
If y'all listening, listen up. You gotta repeat that.
Yeah, whether it's good or bad, is
no
African.
Doubt.
So
no doubt.
You should never judge something, whether you should accept something or not, whether African people did it or not. The fundamental question you have to ask is, does it work? And this is the question that a lot of our African ancestors would ask. They had no problem adopting anything from anywhere else, as long as it served their purposes for that, saying moment in time. And so to be African is to be open to processes and concepts that will work for you. That's all that matters. That's what the African part is. So I understand ultimately what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that traditionally this has not been an African cultural practice,
right,
as we understand it. So
right.
So these are just Africans, whether they're in the diaspora or not, who are trying to hold on and on to a sense of self,
right.
saying without any kind
Which
of
is
external influence.
And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that, and I get that understanding too. Correct.
So I understand the nuance. I understand what is happening and what they're trying to do. Now on the religion piece, I have a different take on what is religion and spirituality and things of that nature. In terms of believing in God, yes, I believe in God, but I believe it in a traditional African way. And
okay,
so
you believe in the supernatural?
But no, there's no such thing as supernatural. And this is what I'm trying to say here from the African standpoint. For the
I got you, brother.
For the African, God is existence itself. And it's an infinity.
So when you okay.
So this is what I'm saying.
I got you.
So it is existence itself, it is life itself, it is motion itself. It is the things that is creation. It is everything and all things at once. That's what God is. And so there's no such thing as supernatural because God is nature. So when you're saying supernatural, it's beyond what is natural. So we know what the term technically refers to, because when people say supernatural, they're saying beyond their normal experiences.
Got you. That makes sense. Yeah.
But what you normally, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on that scientists deal with on a daily basis that is beyond your normal experience. This does not mean that it is beyond nature.
True that. Yeah, that's correct. I think I might have.
There's still laws,
right,
and rules and all of this kind of stuff. So the indigenous, the dominant perspective is that simply God is an infinity, and it is existence itself. So it's kind of hard for there to be a logical atheist from that perspective, because you can't argue that existence don't exist, that you don't exist.
True, but now let me try to word it differently then. Not supernatural, but now when you say God, it's almost like you put a character to it.
Not necessarily.
Even though it's all nature, because then what's okay? Then what control? Because controls. There has to be something. When you talk about the beginning of something,
who said that there was a beginning?
Okay, you just said existence. You didn't say.
Yeah. So like even when you start getting into particle physics and astrophysics and things of this nature, they're seriously entertaining, like, because everyone asks, well, okay, well, there's the Big Bang. Well, what happened before the Big Bang? They'll just simply say, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. True.
And what you'll find is like these multiverse arguments and hypotheses
that's coming out
around, and that it's just been an infinite
simulation and all that
of fluid of existence and interactions, and we're just existing in one universe,
right,
out of an infinite array of sea. And what's interesting, and matter of fact, I'm working on a text that articulates this, and it has to deal with I title it quantum field theory as African heritage. And what I demonstrate and show is that many of the themes in modern quantum physics and quantum field theory are very ancient and present in African religious or spiritual systems or whatnot, in terms of their theory of the universe. And matter of fact, like, you know, when you think about, you know, see the fundamental argument, like there's no such thing as a fundamental particle. It's just an excitation of a field. So when you talk about, like, you know, saying like light, a photon or whatnot, it's just an agitation of the electromagnetic field.
Hmm.
You know, you know, every single particle has a particular type of field that it's an agitation of or whatnot. So it's the field that is fundamental. And you get this same type of language in, for example, ancient Egypt, when they talk about this watery nun. Matter of fact, I can show you a modern, uh, a lecture being done by a physicist in London. I forgot where it is, but it's like a famous place that a lot of them come and do a lecture. So it's kind of almost round room, where he has to use the language that the field is kind of a fluidity from which everything emerges. And this is the same language that the ancient Egyptians were using when they're talking about the waters of Nun. And they're talking about a fluidity from which Ra and everybody emerges, and creation comes from. And so, you know, I ultimately asked the question, like, where would Africans be in particle physics had not there been this large interruption of the transatlantic slave holocaust, you know, throughout these years? Because, like, they were on a scientific path in terms of understanding the universe, and a lot of the hypotheses and are testable first and foremost coming from these African groups. And it mirrors a lot of what you see now. Of course, I'm not arguing that they had the detailed E equals MC square, you know, type equations, but they theorize in a very fundamental way that matches what we see, you know, in astrophysics and quantum physics that we see today in the modern age. And so, but all of this comes from their theory of God, of course, and that is God is existence. It is an infinity. Nothing can exist outside of an infinity. It's all inside. And so they're talking about this infinite motion, sets of motions of matter that we would say today, and those interactions in clusters forming the reality in which we see today. So this is fundamental in a number of African traditions. So I'll be talking about the Zulu tradition. I'll be talking about the Dogon tradition. We're talking about ancient Egypt, and I'll be talking about Yoruba and Congo. So you'll see all of those discussions, and so you'll get a fundamental understanding of what the essence of what these particular traditions are, and how they can be useful when be used as springboards for a scientific understanding, you know, saying of the world. But so that goes into showing the difference and taking the spookism out of the religious, because they were very fundamental in thinking. And so we just got to understand the difference between indigenous African pedagogy and what we're kind of used to in our modern system. So, like, they taught through myths.
Right. Well, you went in on religion though. You know, like on your Exodus book and some of your talks, when you went in on not African spirituality, but I'm saying religion, like far as Christianity and things like
they're exploitative systems,
right?
And you know, they exist to cause conflict between human groups,
right? And that's the reason why I kind of brought up religion, because you definitely you addressed religion plenty of times.
But at the same time, like, I'm real hesitant to use the word religion. Now, I understand what people mean by it, but again, for me, I want to know, what is the essence? What really is religion? And I've come to the point where I understand religion not to be a bad thing. Matter of fact, I make the argument that African Americans are in the condition that they are in partially because we don't have our own religion. And I don't mean,
That's the argument you pose in Bacala, right?
well, that's dealing more so with identity.
Okay.
But it's within that same conversation.
Right. Okay.
Because religion has to deal with the relationship between groups, between people within a particular society, and the rules that you set up for harmonious interactions between people. It has nothing to do with gods and these beings and all this other kind of stuff. That's not what religion is. That's how we think of it today, because our models of religion have come to us through Islam, through Christianity,
Judaism,
Hinduism, all this other kind of stuff. You're seeing outwards of expression, but that's not it. It's simply the rules of engagement between people within a particular society. And what are the steps? So say, for instance, you and I are buddies, and I do something, to offend you, that it could possibly seriously sever our relationship and cause conflict within the community, right? Like let's say we and you are good friends, but we're also leaders of, two important different organizations. Right. And so because of our conflict, it could reverberate, into the community in a very serious way. Right. So what is the rules of engagement for you and I to repair our relationship, to rebind, to relink ourselves so that we establish harmony, reestablish harmony back into the community? That's what a religion is. Right. And there are things that have come out of that we are more familiar with, but we just don't remember where these ideas have come from, and we've kind of deviated from that. So we got to remember that for African people, ancestors are not dead. They have shed this shell and exist on another plane and interact with us, and so they're still family. Gotcha. So if the thought of an indigenous person is, well, if something is going on that's bad in our community or in our family, and it's not directly traceable to an individual person, well, we must have offended an ancestor or a spirit or something like this. So we need to repair the relationship with them so that they will stop bringing, bad vibes, in our lives. So this is where the whole sacrificing and leaving offerings and gifts, libations, and all that, comes into play, because this is what we do in real life. So say me and you, got into it. One of the first things that we would do is that we would go down and sit somewhere and have a meal together. This is where you get the whole concept of breaking bread. Breaking bread, because if you can't be angry at someone who's feeding you, like that starts the conversation. Like, I'm eating good, okay, what's up? You're more prone to listen. Y'all hear that? To what I have to say, because saying we're eating, and so matter of fact, in the book "Where Is the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose," I discuss how the word love comes from a verb meaning to extend your hand and feed someone. It's to give someone food. This is the fundamental idea from where the concept of love comes from. So even in the biblical text, and I forgot what the verse is, but this is where one of the disciples had betrayed Jesus, and he's trying to get back in his good favor. And he's asking, I think his name is Peter, do you love me? And he's like, yes, I love you. He says, well, feed my sheep. he said, do you love me again? He's like, yes, I love you. He said, feed my flock, blah, blah. But each time he's responding with feed. If you love, then feed.
Gotcha.
This is, we've kind of lost that in our modern age, but that's what love is. Love has to deal with you feeding,
Right.
each other. And so this has implications, metaphorically beyond the simple act of just feeding.
Right.
But the point is that, when we are both eating, our relationships are strong. And so you notice that, in a society at large, when one group is eating and another group isn't, this
Yeah.
causes
Hey.
conflict
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all other kind of stuff happens. So,
Definitely. Definitely.
it's very fundamental things that, we kind of take for granted or have
Mm.
lost,
Right.
which
Right.
skews our understanding. And so I try not to
Especially,
get tripped
especially,
up.
especially the diaspora.
Yeah. So I try
uh,
not to get tripped up with the words when it comes to like
true that.
religion and spirituality,
True
because
that.
I know most folks don't know what that is. So I have to be careful in how I respond, saying to it in terms of my understanding based on
True
my
that.
research. And
True that.
so
Now we've been over an hour or whatever, so I don't want to keep you too long. So that's why I'm going to get into some of these questions,
all right.
like the Exodus. So,
Mhm.
in your perspective, did the Exodus happen?
No, there's no evidence that I'm aware of that would inform us that the biblical exodus, as told to us in the text, actually happened, neither on the side of the Levant archaeologically or on the side of Africa in Egypt. There's just no corroborating evidence whatsoever that this actually took place.
Now, if Zion Lex hears you say that,
And then,
now he might,
mm,
because he actually friend requested me,
mm,
Zion Lex, and so
mm,
he's on there. So I know he's heavy in the community too. But we're not gonna get into all
mm.
that. But to say, I will talk about, what do you the oldest languages of the world, Egyptian, of course. You would say Sumerian as well, correct?
I wouldn't say that they're the oldest languages. I would say
Oh,
that those are some
oldest
of the
written,
oldest
written
attested languages in writing.
in writing, correct?
You
Because
know,
I heard you talk that before about the
yeah,
languages, things like that. How can we
yeah. We don't
date
know what
date
the
the
oldest languages
well?
are.
You know, everybody's always stuck on Mesopotamia, that, or either ancient Egypt civilization or
Mhm.
Sumerian. But what about the Indus Valley? A lot of people don't talk so much about the Indus Valley because that's a pretty old one. Some even say it's
Yeah,
older than both of them, but I don't know.
those are debates that are just
Right, it's like
ongoing.
those three kind of, yeah.
Because part of it is that people are trying to make a claim
Claim.
for the origin of civilization being in those particular areas.
Right.
Now, I have that word civilization has come to us in a very baggage state. And because of, saying European hegemony and things of this nature, like we've taken on the language of our oppressors and not really realizing what the underlying implications are.
Mm.
And so, in my opinion, the highest civilizations, there would be no trace of them in history.
Mm. True.
Why? Because civilization has to deal with
Now you said,
the
hold up. Now let's back it up. You said the highest. What were you saying that has no trace in history? What did you say?
you wouldn't know they existed because they wouldn't have built and exploited the land in a way that they would have left the gang of monuments. You
Oh,
wouldn't.
so you saying the highest culture? I'm saying, who you said wouldn't have left so many. You talking about high?
I'm saying like if who because in our modern opinion,
First, I thought you said the oldest, but you're talking about high culture.
The oldest or highest, but this
okay,
is my point. That when we think of civilization, we're thinking of monuments.
No, I get what you're saying.
That people like, they left this and they left this art.
Right,
it's like,
right.
No, that's not civilization. Civilization has to deal with how the people treat each other.
Got you.
And stuff, and what less of an impact that you leave on the environment.
Right.
Like you would, like the highest civilizations, you wouldn't know they existed in the archaeological record.
Got you.
Because civilization has to deal with how you treat people. That's what it's civil. It's about
right.
People.
And what I want the people, the family, if they listen, I believe you're referring to like you said, like monuments, statues, and things which require labor, and the mistreatment of obviously the exploitation
of resources,
and people to have all of these monuments and things like that. I get what track you was going on.
You wouldn't have King, like the inequality that exists in these so-called high civilizations.
Right.
Is that's not civilization. Like like
that's
for
true.
example,
I get what you're saying.
We have rockets that go to the moon and Mars and all this other kind of stuff.
True that.
But you go out to LA and you have a place called Skid Row.
Tell me about it.
Where you have gangs of homeless people, and that's mirroring in every city and stuff, like basic needs. Like for me, you can't argue that you exist in a civilization if you have homeless people. That should be an oxymoron.
That's true. That's a beautiful holistic way of looking at it. That's like
sure. We gotta think differently in terms of the language that we use. And the terms and what we associate and bring value to.
Definitely.
Like people starving to death, like that shouldn't exist in a place that.
Speaking of that, my first interview was I don't know if you ever heard of permaculture. It's a kind of a holistic way of growing food and things like that. He was an African American guy living out here on a little place out here north in Norway. Where polar bears and all that stuff, Svalbard or whatever, African American brother. He's growing herbs and he has that whole culture. I learned, So like I said, I interview different people, very diverse. But I agree with you. I'm on that vibe there. Yeah. So I like the way you put it. That high culture that you wouldn't necessarily see a lot of evidence and things behind it because they wouldn't be so boastful and things like that, right?
Now you may see some art or something like that. I'll give that, just forms of expression, but you wouldn't see like large temples and all this other kind of stuff. You just wouldn't see that, because part of the discussion is having a less impact on the environment. Because you see the symbiotic relationship. Right. Now, we've gotten to a state of building where we can build.
And that's another. And I don't mean to cut you off. That's another reason why I like you, brother, because you always in that Zen mode. I mean, I seen you on Sarnetta and all these things. I see people like Ngozi and other people coming at you. Just verbally attack you, screaming, and you like, calm down, brother. Do you hear what I'm saying? And you always had that calm, that deep voice, man, that put you to sleep, bro. but you that silent assassin though. You come there sharp with the knowledge, the scholarship, man. You kill him silently though.
I don't want to.
And that's what I admire of you,
because I'm coming at you. I don't want you to miss the message because I'm coming at you in the wrong way.
Right.
Now the energy that you give, I can give it back, but I also think about. I try to at least.
Right. I don't think I ever heard you. I think I never heard you get loud. Probably one, maybe twice in all these videos. I think once because it was coming at you like a little too
Yeah,
hard, especially on Sonetta. You know, he the Don King of the
yeah,
he set up the thing.
but
Right?
like people
I don't want
gotta,
to. But yeah. I'm not trying to talk about him in a negative way because he definitely brought a lot of light to a lot of people. So, but
yeah, and
it's
that's one
funny.
of the reasons why like I even involve myself, because again, like I present at conferences and submitting texts and stuff like this.
Right.
But I wanted to be able to bring these conversations that we're having in the academy
Right.
to the lay public.
Right.
And, just coming from the hood myself, it's
Right.
like, I understand the mentality of a lot of folks. So a lot
Right.
of these folks haven't gone to college and
Right.
learned any of this stuff. And so
Mm.
they're, they're self.
I'm trying to help clean up some. Yeah, I feel you, man. That's
And
why I
I'm not
brought you
saying
in.
that
No,
I'm
I
not
got
saying that that is necessarily necessary,
correct.
but
I agree.
you have folks who who don't see the value in that and don't
Mm.
understand that your toughness in the streets
Mm.
does not transfer over into
Translate.
scholarship.
Mm-mm.
You know,
Mm.
it's irrelevant because it's all about what's up here and how sharp you are
I'm a,
here.
now I'm gonna bring up another person,
Okay,
Netanyahu.
he's a he's a
When
prime
when
example
prime
of what I mean.
prime example when I said when the brother was talking about linguistics, but he have his shirt off. I was like, bro, I can't even.
Yeah,
I can't even watch the video, brother. You got your shirt off, talking about boxing and doing this, and then every time he talked about, and I don't want to stay on a negative vibe or whatever like that. But when he talked about Doctor, for the life of me, he kept on talking about Doctor Nasser. Nasser, no, where's this
yeah,
Nasser? I never heard of the guy. I'm trying to look up Nasser. I want him to bring in the video of his. He said his what he say? That's his elder and
yeah.
things like
It's
that. Where is this Nasser guy and where is this? And he comes on talking about peer reviewed, and all this. Then you got Chief X trying to go in at you.
because again, like I'm the kind of person that
I'm
I'm
like
not going to agree. If I don't agree with you, I'll let you know.
called you by your government name.
I mean, I don't have no problem. Like people think it's an insult. Like it's not an insult to
Right,
me. I have many names.
right,
Asar
right,
Imhotep is just,
right,
well, the Imhotep part is when I pledged Alpha in college,
right, right,
and that was the name given to me.
right.
Saying after I pledged in college, and I added the Asar to it, but
They
because
probably
I
act
was,
like you. They probably act like you because talking about boasting
yeah.
and all these things like that. Some people probably think because I think I heard somebody when you call yourself a Sar Imhotep like you supposed to
Yeah,
be
like no,
some guru or something.
this was given to me, and the only reason why I kept that name out of the other names that I may be associated with,
Yeah.
even my initiation names,
Mm.
is because when I started writing my blog, that was the name that I used. That it was fresh out of college, and I just used that name. And so
Yeah.
it's just one of those. It's like like when a woman becomes an actress, and even later she gets married, she still goes by the name because it's like a brand now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's in that same fashion. So I just keep the name. I've even done a linguistic analysis, and I found out how you properly pronounce Asar. It's not
Mm.
Asar. It's
Mm.
Osir.
Okay. Okay.
Osir. So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
still a name being used in places like Kenya and Sudan and stuff to this nature. But
Now,
I
now,
keep it because that's how it was when I came out. So I
right
just I
now,
just let it be.
you reminded me of another question. I was talking about the language, because isn't that true that the Matrilineal they don't really have vowels, correct?
To our knowledge, yes.
To our knowledge,
In our present state of knowledge,
and
the
you
vowels were not written in the hieroglyphic script.
you studied under. Speaking of that, you studied under Raketi Almin, right?
No,
Oh, you didn't. I thought you did. Raketi
no.
Almin, for everybody that doesn't know, she's or she used to be. right? The professor
No,
at
she
University
still
of
teaches.
Chicago. At University of Chicago.
Oh no, no, no. She's in like Mississippi right now, but
Okay,
that's where
but
she
she
went to
was
school for
before. Oh, she went
Egyptology.
to
Yeah,
okay. She went to school for Egyptology at University of Chicago,
yeah,
but she teach okay in Mississippi. I got you.
yeah.
But you, I mean, Wujaru. That's part of your. Are you
Ujawu and Sanjeti learned directly
Sanjeti?
under her.
Okay.
In part, I'm self-taught, but I also studied under Mubabinge Bilolo and Anthony Ra, who passed away. So he wrote a book, Let the
I
Ancestors Speak.
I heard of that. Yeah.
And then there was just local groups, like Taseti African Historical Society in Houston,
Right.
under Brother Jabati and Brother Banjoko
Okay.
and stuff to this nature. So like it's different teachers, and then of course, you teach yourself after a while. It's like they
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
you the basics, and then
Got
you
you.
just have to continue your studies,
Is that
after
kind of how
that.
you that's kind of how you did the linguistic thing?
Yeah, it's in the
Well,
same way. So like there's
right.
some formal classes that I took, and then others it was just
Right.
self-taught, and then it's just like math though. You have to do it. You
Right.
can't just read
Right.
and get it. It's like you start learning more when you start asking questions and start doing the experiments yourself. And
Right.
so that's where the the real knowledge and stuff comes from. And
Are you mhm.
so I'm sorry, go ahead.
are you are you still a part of the Amara squad?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And now is that I don't know all the factions or whatever, the MBK, Dagger Squad is Garfield.
That's Gar. Yeah, that's
Is
Gar.
Garfield in Armor Squad still, or is he?
No,
No,
he's not a part of the Armor Squad.
he never been,
No,
or
he never was.
okay,
And
because
so
he
it's
was all
just
he was.
we're just all
Okay,
friends, but
got
we
you.
we have different groups. So like
Right. I mean,
like
now he's definitely now distinguished a bit more because in the
yeah,
past he was around you guys heavy, but
yeah.
now he's definitely got his own Dagger Squad uh thing going on or whatnot.
Exactly. And
Oh
so
yeah,
there's like the Mosi Warrior Clan,
Mouse,
Kofi Pasai,
got you.
MBK, like they're their own entities, but we all know each other, interact with each other. So
Right.
we on
So
each other's
much.
platforms and
So
support one
much.
another and promote, and stuff to that nature.
And that takes me to this little name game I'm gonna play with you because when I pull out a name, I just want you to see if you can give me one word when you think of them.
Okay.
But we're gonna get into that right after this question. Are
Okay.
you and Sarnetter, are you guys because I haven't seen you on this platform for a minute. Are you guys was there some friction there or
No, there wasn't not between him and I.
okay.
I know that at a
Onk.
point that him
Onk.
and Unc had got into it. And I know like the last time that I spoke with him, he wanted me to come on the show, and I'm like, I need y'all to patch up whatever it is that y'all going through
Being
before I
loyal
come on,
being loyal to the
because
team.
you know
Mm,
because like the Armor Squad's name and stuff was brought up in their beef, so
got
that
you.
becomes a thing with all of us. It'd be different if it was just you and Unc, and
Right.
it was just that. But because the name, so I'm like, y'all. But even then, I haven't been on, but it's primarily because I've just been too busy. So I'm back in school now,
Got you.
and I'm starting a publishing. Well, I've started a publishing company,
Hmm.
and I'm getting ready to publish a few texts, and I've started a
I didn't get your latest text. I said I mentioned everything except that dictionary.
yeah,
The
that's
the
towards a comparative dictionary of Chicam and modern African languages.
got you. My bad.
And
I forgot.
so
Yeah, yeah.
I'm coming out with a text. So I started an institute called the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology.
Wow. Okay.
And
Okay.
so I'm coming out with a publication under that name this summer. Actually, it's going to be two. I'm trying to organize a conference,
Okay.
and so it's just I'm just busy, and and they're talking about the same type of stuff on Sonetta, so they're good, but
You know,
it's
You know, and
I
yeah,
don't.
I don't. To be honest with you, I don't really go there as much as I used to back in the day.
Yeah.
But just I keep a post on it a little bit, but I really don't. Um, can we go through a list of names, and you can you don't have to just say one word, but you can give
Yeah,
like a little brief on your personal thoughts.
no problem.
Don't be scared if they watch this video. Or,
I, I I say what I say and I mean what I say.
right,
So
right,
I
right,
know.
right. Shaka Amos.
Shaka Amos, a good brother. I think he could be a bit more precise with his research. But what I enjoy about him is that he's not afraid uh
Now,
to
everybody, I'm gonna
challenge.
pause because I'm gonna. The reason why some people may take it, I'm always interrupting them, but I'm trying to let the audience know some of the names I go through is some of a lot of the people that is pretty known in the Black conscious community. So I'm going through a list of a bunch of people and also some scholars or whatnot. Go ahead, Shaka Amos.
Yeah. I just I think he has a deep passion and love and knowledge for ancient Egypt. I just wish he would organize his thoughts more and not get too personal with the people that
Mm,
he's trying to debate.
mm.
Because I think he would be able to accomplish so much more if he takes his ego out of it
Right.
and um don't take personally and
Mm.
attack personally his opposition.
But he's
And
but he's
so,
but he's the Tupac of the conscious community, though, right?
but where did Tupac end? What was the ending to his life?
I'm messing with you because
Yeah,
yeah, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
yeah. But
I got you. I
so
got you.
like what's good about him is that it's a lived tradition for him. So he's
He
taking it to where, like, I
he
find this information
he
valuable
he
and
he he
I'm
he
going to
definitely
incorporate it.
he definitely that's what I can't give him. I see him. He lives
Yeah,
it. He has the one lock thing
yeah,
going. Him and his kid, I think,
yeah.
and he's yeah, yeah,
He,
yeah.
that's what you need. So you know that he's committed to the
Hmm.
ideals, of the tradition, at least being able to express
And
it that way.
and
And
he
so,
rubbed little elbows. He rubbed kind of elbows with what Ben Yakinen and
mhm,
the Clark because he's from that area or
yeah,
whatnot. Um, yeah. Okay. The next person, Jabari Osezi.
Jabari, another good brother. Matter of fact, he's my frat brother.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Same frat, but that doesn't
yeah,
necessarily mean it was. I got you.
yeah.
Got you. Got you.
So, very, I like what he's doing. I just wish that he was a bit more scholastic in his arguments. And so, uh,
He's right. He's writing off of that Seven White Lies book, huh?
well, I don't know if he's riding off of that.
Right.
I just know certain arguments of his has gotten him in trouble because he's kind of borrowed them from
now,
like the
now, now,
Gerald Massey's and stuff like that.
now,
And so
now,
he
now
hasn't
it's really fun.
updated.
Now Richard Carey has got on his little tail, and he's
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like I wish, he would take counsel more
right.
in terms of these particular debates, because I
But
understand, like, when we're having a conversation like this, we can afford to kind of go around
right,
stuff
right.
like, but when you're in a debate, you need to be
Be
exact and
on
precise.
point,
And so
on
he
point.
likes to talk around. It's like, no, you
Yeah,
lose them.
there you
You
go.
giving them,
There you
just
go. I agree with you.
answer the question
I agree
directly
with you. I agree with
and
you.
and and do that, and so they can't twist your words.
Right,
But he's another one. He's another one that this is a lifestyle for him.
right.
And so he has connections, like, I don't know if he's still there, but he's or has come back, him and his wife,
Oh, yeah, went to Ghana. That's right.
Ghana, and stuff to this nature, and doing and having relationships and stuff with people there. And then, of course, he has his own shrine, what he calls a shrine and
Right,
community
right,
and
right,
stuff to that nature.
Right.
And
But he seemed like a good
so,
brother, another good brother in
yeah,
general, for
is
sure.
it's
Yeah,
some issues that I have. It's not
right.
with him personally. It's just
We're
arguments.
talking about
It's
scholastically. That's what we're
scholastic.
talking about. Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah. The
very few people
information.
that's just like your character.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
really
yeah,
don't
yeah.
like,
No, I know.
but he's
Yeah,
not one of them.
right. And
It's
I don't want people
certain.
to think that's what I'm, But
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, next one. Fundishi.
Um,
Mm-mm-mm.
very, very knowledgeable about
Mm-hmm.
meta nature.
Right.
However, it is
Mm.
counterbalanced with a lot of esoteric stuff that has nothing to do with the script. So
Sometimes I thought the same.
um,
I thought the same sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, so when it comes to learning that meta nature, yo, he's top notch. So you got to give him that. And so he's one who learned and studied under Dr. Riquetti.
Ricketty, I mean, I remember
Yeah.
him saying that.
And so for a lot
Uh,
of folks,
uh,
the genealogy is going to either be directly from Obinga or Dr. Riquetti Amen
Ricketty, I mean, yep.
and Dr. Jacob
Asa
Carruthers.
Hilliard. No, yeah, because
Because
Carruthers
Jacob
and Asa,
Carruthers is
and
it's Obinga and Jacob Carruthers that are the
those two.
top two.
That's right. That's right.
And then like
You
the
had
Mario
Asa.
Beatties,
Baby.
the Riquetti Amens, and all of that fall
What
under.
about what about Asa Hilliard now?
No, in terms of meta nature.
Okay.
Asa
Okay.
Hilliard, I don't think really taught
Was it?
meta nature.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, he
Um,
didn't teach it, but I thought he
no,
was
he
capable
was
of
part of
reading.
the school. He was part of the camps. He may have learned a little bit, but
Okay. Okay.
he's not a teacher like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
you
I
had
got you.
Unc Mirage under, saying
Oh,
Obenga, and like they're like
I knew
it's,
about
it's
Obanga
those
and
two.
Ricketty. Yeah.
It's going to be Raketti Ahmed, and in many respects she should be, but she just came later. So it's
I know
Dr.
what you mean.
Teofilo Binga and Dr. Jacob Carruthers as the two, and then falling under them was Raketti Ahmed, Unc Mira, and like Mario Beatty and a few others. And then
Okay.
you just have folks under that. So like then you have your Infidishis and your
Wajarus even.
Darus,
Yeah, I got you.
Sunjetti and stuff like that.
Got
And
you.
then there'll be some folks after that. So
Under that. Yeah, yeah.
that's the genealogy.
Dr. Leonard Jeffries.
Uh Unparalleled, saying elder and with experience. And the only
Definitely.
thing that I'm upset about with Dr. Jeffries is that he doesn't have any text.
Mm.
And Dr. Jeffries is
Meaning published work. Published work, you mean? Yeah.
exactly like,
And he was
he has
alongside.
articles and stuff to that nature, but with the kinds of interactions he has had and the experiences,
Man.
he is a walking freaking library.
Definitely.
And
I try to reach. I try to reach out to that guy. I knew that wasn't. I'm like, man. Yeah.
I just wish it's two people I have issue, three actually, and they're all in the same camp and all in the ASCAT camp, and that is Dr. Jeffries,
Okay.
Mario Beatty,
Okay.
and Dr. Greg Carr.
Okay.
All very, very, very knowledgeable, have a whole bunch of
history
and text, but haven't been publishing like full scale analyses and texts and stuff to this nature. And it's like when they, because you're not promised tomorrow,
right?
And so when they go,
it seems like
certain you may have had some
lost.
good experiences with them teaching you, but will they be able to speak? Like that's Dr. Ben, regardless of how he taught, and Dr. Clark, they have text for us to examine.
I'm glad you brought up. I'm glad you brought up Dr. Ben. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to say what I haven't never heard anybody say on this on YouTube or anything like that. Dr. Ben, I like him and everything. He was great definitely inspired a whole generations of Black people. But the only thing that I got hung up on was where he was from. he he said he went to Salamanca. I mean, he studied at this university, from Puerto Rico, from this and that. You can't tell me that there was no questions. And sometimes it seemed that's the only part. Just the story of his. Like, you can't take away his knowledge of
Yeah.
things and things like that, because it's hard to really.
I
You
think
can't
with
fake that,
him,
but you get what I'm saying. His where he
yeah,
was from, or his origin.
to my understanding, he
Because
is from
he
Puerto
said his.
Rico,
You see what I'm saying? And
but his father is Ethiopian, and he
I
spent
heard that
time
already.
in Ethiopia as a youth.
But then he
And so,
spent time in
like,
the Virgin Islands of Jamaica too, and all kinds
yeah,
of.
I mean, but that's possible.
No, that is possible. That
Yeah,
is
like
possible.
that's a
That,
hop, you know,
no. That
Haiti,
is.
Jamaica, all that's a hop, skip, and a jump.
I get
That's,
that. I get that. But
you know,
you can't tell me I'm the only one that thought a little bit.
well, the
Have
thing
you ever?
is, keep in mind that Dr. Ben died damn near 100 years old.
Right. Right.
And there are, like in a lot of these places, they don't have records like
Mm-hmm.
we have records. So,
Right.
like I've had family members of that old, like born in the 1800s.
Right.
And we don't know when, like, they don't know the exact date that they were born.
No,
And stuff like this, because
I know that. I know that. I just had to
the
bring
the
it up. I had to
record,
bring it up though. I had to bring it
yeah.
up, and I
So,
just
like, where he's from is
at this
really
point it's
not a
kind of
question to
irrelevant.
me.
Yeah.
I've always heard from him that he's from there,
Right.
and that his father was Ethiopian, that he would always
Falasha.
travel
Right.
to Ethiopia. So,
Right.
like, I know, like, Chief X has tried to make some videos and stuff like this, saying that he said that he's from Ethiopia,
No, but
and
see, I
then we
didn't.
look at his proof, and it's like, no, he didn't say that he was from Ethiopia in this lecture or whatnot.
Right. Right. No, I didn't.
He
I
said
never
that,
listened to the Chief's X thing explanation, but I was just that's my point. My point
yeah.
right there,
I
because
mean, but
you have a
that's
faction
irrelevant.
of people. I believe, because not that I had so much relevance. I just I
Yeah.
just brought it up. Reggie,
Brother Reggie.
brother Reggie.
Um,
He's another.
Brother controversial at times.
He's kind of similar like you though. His side gig is computers, right?
Well, no, his side gig would be scholarship,
Or
but
I mean his primary. My bad.
yeah,
He had a computer science degree, correct? His
yes,
a
that's
bachelor's or something like that.
according to him. Yes, that's what
Well,
he studied when he was in college.
he
And
said according to him, but I saw him put up his bachelor's degree one time at the cameras. But but I mean,
I'm just
yeah.
saying that's according to him, and that was in
All right.
the 80s, I think.
Oh yeah,
And so that that was a while ago.
But
Um,
we did see his face as a young boy
yeah,
alongside some of the
but
Ben and all. Yeah,
he's another one,
right.
and I don't know, like, I don't know if you ever seen a video of,
On World Star.
no, Professor Manu and Pim talking about ASCAC,
Oh,
and how there was a falling out between members of ASCAC and all this other kind of stuff. Like, he was doing a lecture
right.
for a study group out in the
Mm.
Bay somewhere at
Speaking of
some
that,
time.
speaking of
Huh?
ASCAC, speaking of the ASCAC, the one big not fallout but debate that I heard going on during that ASCAC time was you and Dr. Mario Beatty or whatnot,
But it
or people,
wasn't a debate.
or actually people. No, it wasn't a debate, but it was a
Yeah.
different talks or whatever lectures.
Yeah.
But maybe it was somebody trying to pit y'all against each other in some way. They were trying to say that Dr. Mario Beatty said that the methodology that you use was not proper. Am I correct, or am I
Yeah,
way off?
that is, and well, this kind of leads back again to Reggie. So again,
Got you.
me dealing with the Kemet
The
question.
perpetrator.
I've been dealing with Kemet for damn near 20 something years,
Right.
right? In terms of this question, and my perspective has evolved the deeper the questions I asked, and the more I probed into the language and the writing script of ancient Egypt.
Right.
So what I think this was what, like in 2017, 2018, it kind of came into a head with Netanyahu, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about him next.
You know, on Facebook.
Yeah.
About, you know, saying this meaning Kemet. Like, keep in mind, I've been debating the meaning of Kemet for decades.
Yeah, I know.
So like it comes up every, like, it's almost like clockwork. So within the next 2 months or so, someone's going to try to bring it up and try to debate me on the meaning of Kemet. So Netanyahu at that time was just
because he's a proponent, for people that don't know, he's a proponent of saying that the Kemet means black people, correct?
Exactly.
Right.
You know,
and
so
you're
I
saying
argue that it doesn't mean
the
black
land
at all.
Correct.
You know,
means
and so
it refers to the land.
It refers to the land itself, and not necessarily with the color of the land.
Correct.
It's just more so the fertility of the land and things of that nature. So the issue is that, you know, he, you know, being very emotional in his feelings about the argument. Like, again, I'm neutral, just like you said. Like, I don't care. It's an academic question and exercise, you know, saying, for me, a very important one, because I want to know more about, you know, African sense of identity. Like I'm asking the deeper questions, like when African people define themselves, what are the mechanisms in which they use to define themselves? What are they looking at when defining themselves? And when I was looking all across Africa, I could not find indigenously that the people ever defined themselves by any physical characteristic, nor did they define anyone else based on their physical characteristics. That's not how they defined. They did definitions. That's not how they did identity. And I didn't find that same thing even in ancient Kemet. And so when it came to this debate, like, you know, he kept wanting to debate this stuff, and I'm like, dude, you're all over the place when it comes to this question here. And, you know, and he's just drawing straws and not making sense and contradicting himself and stuff like this. And so, you know, after a while, I just, you know, I got tired of the disrespect and all this other kind of stuff, so I would ignore him. And so, but, you know, what he would do is continue to make videos and posts and stuff like this. I've ended the conversation with him.
Yeah.
And so I just said, you know what, we can have this debate, right? And so, like in 2019, in January, you know, we decided on that we're going to have this debate. So, but he had set it up. So he had set it up with Dr. Cambone on bb2me.com.
I was actually going to ask you your thoughts on Dr. Cambone. That's definitely one, but go ahead and finish that last part.
Yeah. So, you know, what he set up was it was supposed to be a debate with some unanimous, not unanimous, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Cherry pick? No. I know.
He was the only person who knew who the scholars were going to be.
Got you. So he was able
that was supposed to peer review the debate, right? And so, and then he tried to have it to where it was only going to be on a bb2me, but not shown publicly.
Right.
And so I'm like, I don't trust y'all, because y'all will edit this and say da da da. I'm like, this needs to be a public debate. And so I got it to where we, at least on my channel, that, you know, it was streamed, you know, saying live, and no edits and things of that nature.
Right.
So, you know, he presented his argument, and
I see that your video is jumpy a little bit. Is it your battery's good or everything?
Yeah, I'm good. It's probably just
okay.
The webcam.
Okay, cool.
And the how should I say, the debate didn't go as he planned it. So sensing that he didn't do too well, here comes Reggie. So now he wants to jump into the debate. And so, he did a presentation and we tore that presentation, saying up live,
Right.
saying with
Right.
him
Right.
on the channel.
Right.
And so now he feeling some kind of way. So now he said, you know what, I'm gonna bring this. We need to debate this at ASCAC. And so, he sets it up with ASCAC that we would have a forum where we would discuss and debate the meaning of the word Kemet. But then I come to find out that there's not going to be any question and answer. There's not going to be any rebuttals. So all we were doing is basically a presentation
Right.
on our points, but there was
Yeah.
no debate.
Right.
So it's supposed to be Ned or Neb, me, Unc, and Reggie and Dr. Beatty.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be 3-on-3.
Right.
So in Sunjetti. No, I think who was it? No, I think Wujawu. But Wujawu couldn't make it, Unc couldn't make it. And Ned or Neb couldn't make it.
And see, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. When y'all, we over here debating each other, and we need to, when we don't use that energy to get our scholarship up and come together with the best of us and go against the establishment. You know what I mean? That's what gets me.
It's not. These are done in circles that a lot of us aren't in.
Right.
And I'm planning something. And I won't announce it until it's solidified.
Man, this thing is jumping all over the place. Do you see it?
I see it now. Let me unplug and plug in the webcam and see if that fixes it. So I'm gonna stop the video. You still should be able to hear me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I hear you.
Well, you probably won't be able to hear me once I unplug it and plug it back in.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I think he unplugged, y'all. I know it's been like a real long video, a real long interview, but I respect the brother, and he like I said, I was gonna I had a schedule for 1 hour, but I was going off of his vibe. If he wanted to talk longer, I definitely was gonna allow him to talk longer. And hello? Yeah, there we go. That's what's up.
I just
But I didn't. But just learning through the different people I talked to, now I know the one that kind of get under your skin more is that character we just talked about. But my question on what do you think about Cabone and his linguistic skills and in your opinion?
Now, as far as everyone is concerned, he's the only one who actually has degrees in linguistics. So, he definitely knows about linguistics. The problem with Cambone is that he, like, for example, he has an issue with Jean-Claude Mboli and the work that he produced in 2010. But it's based off of some methodology that only he has in his head, which he himself has not utilized and produced and put out to the world for them to judge and peer review it. And so that's my major problem, saying with him is like, if you're going to argue that a certain standard exists, you should be able to demonstrate this from a body of text, right? So like he has this idea that Mboli believes that, the transcriptions of the meta-nature, represents real sounds or phones, what we say in linguistics. And I'm like, you couldn't have read the text because
Mm.
he acknowledges that these signs do not represent phones, but they represent sounds. And so again, the problem is it's hard for a lot of us to grasp because they don't have science backgrounds. Mboli is an electrical engineer, basically an applied computer scientist.
Mm.
All he does is math and physics. He's able to recognize and understand linguistics a lot better than a lot of folks
Mm-hmm.
because of his math
My
and
background.
physics background.
Right.
And so, for one of the things that's hard for people to grasp is that a language, a written language, all of it is signs. When you're doing comparative linguistics, you never, ever, ever in your life compare actual sounds. You know why? Because you would have to record every single word in the language from every single person in the community to get an idea of what the sound actually is being produced when saying a word. It's impossible.
Right.
And especially if you're talking about a language that is long dead and gone.
Right. Right.
So these symbols are always idealizations, abstractions. It doesn't matter how they were actually pronounced 100%. What matters is the patterns. So if I can replace every single Meta Nature hieroglyph with dots or numbers, it wouldn't make a difference because all you're really looking for are the patterns. Now, the physics comes in because, of course, there's
Well,
articulations.
if you talk to somebody like Fudishi, he would, he's all into those sounds and
No.
yeah.
It's
But it's yeah.
you because you got to understand, like, even all societies, everyone doesn't pronounce words the same.
Correct.
And there's
I
there's
agree with
a
you.
there's many different factors that could contribute to that.
Right.
So when we're comparing a language, we're not comparing it based on exact, like the technology to even be able to really analyze a sound in the world is recent.
Right. Right. No, I get what you're
You get
saying.
what I'm saying? Like
I
you
definitely get
you
what you're
you
saying.
couldn't do it. These are
Right.
abstractions.
Right.
This is
Right.
why math, you have to use
Right.
math
Right. No,
to
I get what
get
you're
to the
saying.
heart of this, because
Right.
math has to do with abstractions, is logic, is deductive reasoning. And so when you don't understand these fundamentals of mathematics and science, you make arbitrary arguments that are ultimately irrelevant, saying, to the discussion. And someone of that caliber who has that education should know this. And so when you're having these discussions with people like Mfadishi or Brother Reggie or Ned or Neb, who don't have these backgrounds. Now, Reggie's supposed to understand this, but he doesn't understand linguistics and things of this nature. So he's not going to understand the nature of the arguments.
Right. Right.
So, matter of fact, I'm coming out with a publication on the meaning of Kemet. So like that publication that you mentioned earlier, a contribution to the
about
debate
the
on the
debate.
meaning of
Yeah.
Kemet, we put that together at last minute,
Right.
like
I
a week
remember
or
that.
two
It was like, yeah, I
but
remember that.
before the debate. And the
Yeah.
reason why we did that is because we didn't trust them.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
Because
that you guys mentioned that.
as soon as they were like,
Because
we were not going to have a question and answer, and we were not going to be able to do rebuttals.
Because of the people that control the platform there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I got you.
Because we know that we were either going to go first and they were going to go last. And as a result of not being able to rebuttal, they can say whatever, and that would be the last thing on the minds of the people. And because we only had 20 minutes each, there's no way that we can get out everything that we need to get out. Right. So we said, you know what? Let's put together a text, and we'll have that available at the debate or at the conference.
Oh, I like how y'all did that. Yeah.
So that, they understand that these were our arguments coming in. And
Right.
even if we didn't get a chance to get through all of them, here it is laid out, you know, saying in the text. So
Right.
you can't argue that we tried to change it up,
Right.
you know, saying after the fact. No, we came with an argument on
Right.
in writing.
Right.
And so
I had got like I believe I purchased that one, and there was several of your works out here in Norway. You can even check. You can even check if you get one person adding several books from Norway. It was me. Yeah.
appreciate it.
But yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so like that's the thing. So it's we have to explain, because not enough of us understand linguistics and historical linguistics,
Yeah.
in for that matter. And
You know what's
then
funny? You know what's funny? Speaking of Combone, I was talking with somebody about this. Combone, I heard him going on Dr. Oya. What is her name? She's part of
oh yeah,
your
yeah.
my aunt. Her speaking of that, I have no knock against her, but I remember saying this to somebody that my aunt, she always gets on, talks about research methodology and all these things like that, but she doesn't have any public works herself. You understand? She always talks about source, source. She used to always get on before she did that interview thing. She's always get on, you know,
Yeah.
sourcing
Well,
and
in Africana, yes, but in engineering and mathematics, that's not the case. So you got to understand that she's just like Mboli. She's an electrical engineer, PhD.
got you,
And so she has journal articles. And so for a lot of them, it's not about books, it's about journal articles. So
got you. Okay,
she has a number of journal articles, you know, on a lot of subjects that 99% of our audiences aren't going to
well,
understand,
gonna be
because it's in a particular STEM field.
okay, okay,
So when she's talking about research methodology and stuff like this is something she lives. Keep in mind that she's also a teacher, you know,
yeah, no,
as
I get that,
so
I get that, I get
like
that.
this is what she does. And
Right,
so
right,
it's, you may not see publications. And the same thing with Cambone. Cambone is more so journal articles, because he's over a linguistics journal coming out of Ghana. So
right.
most of his publications, like to my knowledge, he doesn't have any books, but he does have journal articles,
Well, this is
you know, saying on linguistics.
well,
So
the reason I brought like my what's his
Dr.
name,
Oya, my
Dr. Oya, my she she interviewed Combone and
mhm.
not too long ago, and he was pretty fired up. He had me cracking up talking about cave beast that. And I was like, what did this what does this guy say? And then after I'm looking him up in his credentials and his schooling, I'm like, you see, he went to school in Madison, Wisconsin, and I mean, he be banging on the beast so hard and talking about using this scholarship, not trusting this scholarship. But then I see he went to the most whitest, you know, children of the corn area
Yeah.
for schooling or whatever. Anyway, um, yeah. So no, I think that we kind of went through we went through a lot. Netanyahu, I don't think we need to talk about him. There was no, I know you got Team Osiris, you got MBK, Amun Ra, Anthony Browder. I know he's doing works in excavating right out there in Egypt and stuff like that.
He's another frat brother.
Right, right. But no, I think that pretty much we talked about a lot. Not to get in, I didn't try to get you to talk everything about your book, because I want the chance for people to purchase these books and things like that. So yeah. So Aluja is about the reinterpretation, correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
uh,
fundamentally a retracing. The word alluja
right,
is a word that means to restore, to also to retrace one step,
right,
to repair that which has been broken.
right,
And so the idea behind the series is that we're examining ancient Egyptian concepts, or re-examining ancient Egyptian concepts,
right.
and looking at modern languages and cultures
And then
alongside the ancient Egyptian text, and seeing if we can get a better and more accurate interpretation of these particular concepts,
Mm.
and how the dialogue between African languages and cultures can
Right.
illuminate some of the kind of the mysterious, or what we believe to be mysterious, uh, ideas and concepts coming out of ancient Egypt. So that's
Okay.
fundamentally the thrust
Okay.
of the Alluja series.
Are you a part of that Hoppy film? Were you a
Yes,
part of
I
that?
am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's a very important, saying film for my brother Taki Grant,
Okay.
and
I haven't
and
seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I definitely want to see it. One of the ladies,
this.
the white lady that speaks on racism in many of the anti-racism groups, Jacqueline Badalora,
Mhm.
that's in it. I'm going to interview her as well on
Uh,
the 16th of May, because her new edition, second edition, is going to be published by Routledge. It comes
mm,
out on the 17th.
uh,
But anyway,
it's some top-notch scholars in there.
no doubt, no
So
doubt.
Dr. Ricchetti, who you mentioned earlier, is in there.
Ricchetti, man. I want to talk to her though a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I need to take her. I want to. I thought about years ago to try to take her course, but I was like, man, I got so much thing going on. I don't know if I can handle that. Is that
Gotta get it in, but
the
it's
hello?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. So yeah, it's what is going on?
No, it's all
Forgive
good.
me
We
for
probably
my
because
last
we've been
train.
on probably because we've been on so damn long. But
It's
anyway,
it's this computer. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to, like, I have this mini PC.
right.
Normally I would be on my laptop or whatnot, but it comes with a number of USBs. But
Mm,
originally I had the cam plugged into um, this external strip of USBs.
right.
I was wondering if that was the
Right.
issue. So when I unplugged it, I plugged it directly in the front here. But I also have my.
And you just did something just now.
Can you see me?
No, I can hear you.
Darn it.
There you go. I can
There.
see. It's going in and out, in and out. I can see you now. What?
Well, it's
There we go. There we go.
yeah,
Let me
like,
ask you.
because
Let me.
when I touch it,
Yeah.
that's when it started acting up in the front. So I'm gonna have to put it in the back. I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Um.
yeah. I'm
What?
just learning it.
Last couple of questions. What? The Hebrew question. Hebrew's black or not?
Mm.
That one right there. In short,
Um,
it's hard to answer that one in
Not in a
short.
way that we would consider black. No, I wouldn't consider
Right.
them black. But they
Right.
do have black and African ancestry.
Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, my argument is that they adopted the Proto-Semitic speakers adopted an African language,
Right.
and it evolved into what we would call Proto-Semitic, and then split off. But it was adopted by a group of indigenous folks that were there, who evolved a certain type of phenotype, in that area. And the ancient Egyptian actually drew them,
Hmm.
and the people in that area. And so when you look at the ancient Egyptian records, they don't look like African folks,
Okay.
and they look like the people who were there now. And so, while I acknowledge that there is African ancestry in them, it's more so a mixed population.
Mm.
Um, but by the standards, the so-called true Negro hypothesis, they
Uh-huh.
wouldn't look like anybody. They wouldn't look like the folks who are on in Times Square yelling at folks talking about the Hebrew
Uh-huh.
Israelites.
Uh-huh.
So that's my take, on it in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah. The other question: did you say somewhere that the Allah the was had an African origin, or were you trying to
No, I've that is my current argument, that the word Allah
Allah?
ultimately has an African origin, and but more specifically, that it was borrowed from the ancient Egyptians,
Hmm.
and that the Proto-Semites who were interacting with the Egyptians at the time in the Delta, a branch of the Egyptians who were speaking a particular unknown dialect, moved into the Levant and settled in the Levant. And this is how the term became inherited and adopted by the Proto-Semites.
Hmm.
And so there's no Arabic at this time. So Allah, the way that we pronounce it now, that it didn't exist. The Proto-Semitic El, which became El, like an El Shaddai
Hmm.
in Hebrew, or Alu in Akkadian, and things of that nature. Allah in Arabic.
Yeah.
That word, was borrowed from the ancient Egyptians, and it had a more fundamental root in the ancient Egyptian language, and um, and it became the sole term used to define, these powers, so to speak. But it's to my art, based
I-
on my research, this is the case. And
right.
so you in most literature, you're not going to find, and I discussed this in Alluja Volume 2.
Okay.
For those
Have,
who
have you read the latest research? Well, I don't know how much of the latest, but that was publicized about the Hyksos.
um I don't know.
Oh,
I've
okay.
read a
Yeah.
number of texts concerning the Hyksos, so
Okay.
you would have to remind me of the conclusion of this particular.
Well, I don't think they. Well, they were talking about how. See if I even fully remember. the, but we can forget that one. I had that on a. We can forget that one right there because that would
Yeah, because it's so many arguments. Some believe
yeah.
that they weren't foreigners at all, or they were foreigners who settled in the Delta,
Uh,
and but like Clyde Winters argues that these were Cushites.
oh
And,
man, Clyde Winters. That's a yeah. I didn't. Even, what do you think about Clyde Winters' work anyway?
no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got you on that one.
I can't support that view.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, yeah. I got you. Um, so we talked about the slavery question,
Okay.
the Egyptian slavery. They had slavery in Egypt. Mm,
Um,
and stuff.
that's a tricky thing there.
I guess it's with
Yeah.
from what I'm learning.
Uh-huh.
Before I even ask you, I think I can answer it myself in some sort of way. But I think it's like it's I guess it's the words we use because I don't think they necessarily had like I don't know
An
full on
economy based
like
on chattel
chattel
slavery,
slavery like
like
yeah right
no. But
like
if
no
if
other
you
like we
can,
had
yeah, if you consider like
exploitation they did
uh, uh, the taking of prisoners from people who you were fighting
right
and making them work in your society, then technically they had slavery.
right
You get what I'm saying?
yeah yeah
But to my knowledge, like you would never, like, I have yet to come across a text where they did like a slave raid. Like they like the purpose of the mission of them going was to take other human beings so that they can build,
right I agree with you with that
society and serve. Like that wasn't the case.
right
It
right
was always they were at war. According to the ancient Egyptians, they didn't start nothing. But
right
whether that's true or not
no
is
I got you I got you
is
on
is is up for
that
discussion.
right
But
right
the texts always make it seem like they're defending themselves,
mm,
against other groups.
the
And
victors
so and
the
and
victors that
and
write it yeah
exactly. So what what we get is a picture of them, defending their borders, and then in the battles in which they won, they force the soldiers to become part of the society and work for them. But even still, like they were by all, you know, by our standards, they were still treated like, you know, human beings, in the sense that, you know, they could marry, they became people of high office, you know,
Right.
they just integrated. So they figured, like, the logic for them was, you know, as long as you are seen as the other, you know, you're going to be causing problems for us. So
Right.
the best thing for us to do is to take you and civilize you in our culture and have you be a part of it. And then that way you're working on our, you know, saying behalf. And so it's not the policy like how we had here in the United States,
Correct.
where you kidnap the Africans, make them, you know, saying work for you and don't pay. And then, you know, if when they get some modicum of freedom, you create ghetto situations where they can't be a part of, where they're isolated in the society and they can't participate fully in the society as well. That's to my knowledge, that is not the case. So like when you're comparing what happened here in the United States to what was going on in Egypt, they don't compare, you
Right.
know. But it's
Definitely.
one of those things, is how are you defining slavery,
Yeah.
you know.
True that. True that.
So but in the situation to where, like, you know, uh like how some Jewish authors make the argument that they built pyramids, and they weren't even around at the time that the last
Right.
pyramid was
Right.
built.
Most definitely.
um or you know, like how it's described in the Bible. Now how it's described in the Bible may actually be true, just not at the time period in which a lot of scholars believe. What I believe is that because there was a large community of people from the Levant who
Mm.
settled in the Delta region, and they've been there. That's kind of like, you know, that
Yeah.
was kind of like the Chinatown of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Everybody
Th-
knows, like,
uh,
you know, there's a Chinatown, like, you know, there's an
right.
area of town where there's
Right.
a gang of
Very
East
multi.
Asians who
Yeah.
come and
Yeah.
settle and make everything.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they terraform it to fit
Right.
their culture and stuff like
Right.
this.
For
So you
sure.
had pockets like that,
Yeah.
even for the Hyksos, for the
Yeah. Yeah.
in Avaris, you
Right.
had pockets like that in ancient Kemet. Um, and you hear about when the Persians took over,
Mm.
and the harsh conditions that the Persians
Persians.
made the Egyptians. So it's possible that there's some validity to the story in terms of slavery, but it wouldn't have been by indigenous Egyptian, you know, people and pharaohs. This
Right.
is why,
Right.
and the reason why I say the Persian period is because there's, I wish I had an example for you. We know the pharaohs in terms of the written history because their names are written in the, what we call a chenu, which the French call the cartouche, which means bullet, because it looks like a little bullet, but it's a, you know, the name is written in hieroglyphs and a
Right.
tied piece
No,
of
I
rope around the name,
got you.
right? So, but you notice in the Bible that when they named the pharaoh, they never named the pharaoh. The pharaoh
Hmm.
had no name.
Hmm.
It's
Good
just
point.
pharaoh. That's just a title. Like who, you know, like, and we told pharaoh, and
Right.
that's like,
True that.
you know, like me told the president. The president who? President
Right.
Nixon? Was it
Right.
Bush? Was it, you know, Clinton? Who? Which president?
Right.
You know. But during this time period, you would also see these cartouches of the pharaohs, but there's no name written inside, because the people that, like, this is a form of resistance. The people didn't recognize them as true pharaohs who didn't deserve to put their names in the cartouches. So you would see on the writing, because the Persians, they don't know what's going on. They can't read and write
Right.
hieroglyphs,
Right.
but
Right.
they're forcing the people to write and say all these different things. But as a form of resistance, they wouldn't put the names of the pharaohs in. So like you wouldn't know who it is. So like it's possible that someone could write it, but was going off of stories and noticed that there was no name. It was just we know it was a pharaoh, and it just went down in history without a name. So whether it happened the way that it happened in the Bible, and snake eating staffs and
Right.
like no, that there's no evidence. But whether there's an Exodus, no. But there was possibly, and I say this as well because this is the argument for a lot of Senegalese folks who argue that they came from Kemet. And it was during the time of the Persians and the Greeks that they're talking about hardships and things of this nature that they had to flee with their families. And so like there's testimony of 6 different waves of immigrants coming to the Senegambia region from Egypt, traveling on the northern part of Africa. And I discuss that, and I give the source material for that in Illusion Volume 2 in the introduction chapter. And so, there was a lot going on at that period, but yeah, it just depends on how you define slavery to answer your question.
Definitely. The who was, I know you named a lot of people that influenced you. Who was your biggest influence, you would say, the biggest impact on you as far as leaders, or scholars or leaders or whatnot? Yeah.
It's a few, and a lot of these names aren't necessarily known, but of course, Cheikh Anta Diop, Theophile Benga.
Even if it's an unknown one. I mean, I learned some of the scholars from you, actually. From when you interviewed the linguist Campbell, when you got when you spoke to the African guy with the Tikachi principle, the China stuff. So I've been from afar. I've been checking you.
I appreciate it.
I'm a silent assassin of my own right. But go ahead.
So scholars that have influenced me have been, like, of course, Cheikh Anta Diop, Theophile Benga. So that's a default. That's just,
right.
But then there's other scholars like Modupe Oduyoye.
Got you.
Mubai Binge Below.
You be putting me on these African brothers, bro. I tell you, I'll be like, yeah.
Jordan Ngubani.
Dang, you had that memory, man, with these names, yeah.
Yeah, it's of course Dr. Fukiao, Kimwadinde Kiabuseki Fukiao.
Wow.
Amadou Hapati Ba, who was an elder out of Mali, of the Fulani people.
Okay.
Abubakri Musalam, is another one.
Damn, I'm impressed, brother. Yeah.
In terms of religion, it's like, of course, Maladoma Some and Dr. Kaikosa Kajangu.
Okay.
And in that's where like Jordan Ngubani would come in terms of Zulu, and of course Credu Mutwa, and
because sometimes I'll be like, how does Asar find out these scholars, bro? I mean,
I'll be searching.
I'm like,
it's
Lord, man. I'm like, bro, you be pulling out. I'm like, who I never. You be pulling them out from the not the Amazon, but the I'm like, God.
Yeah, but it's a list, man. It is.
How about?
And I've been lucky enough to a number of these scholars to be able to communicate with the exception of those who passed, before I came into consciousness. But that's it's reading text and then going through the bibliography.
There you go.
And then that's really it. It's going through the text, going through the bibliography, or just doing a search.
Right.
For material in terms of its topic and subject, and if anything is published under that, getting that and going. So it's just I have a DJ background as well. So
I do too.
For those of us back in
I
the
do too.
day who
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
literally dig in the crates,
Dig in the
like,
crates.
uh, like that's an art to be able to find those
For
jewels,
sure, for sure.
what I'm saying, for sampling and stuff like
Big,
this,
big up
in the
Jay
mix.
Dilla. Jay Dilla. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always said, like, I want to be the Jay Dilla
That's what's
of
up.
African scholarship,
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
because, he would find and use stuff
Right.
that, nobody would be thinking about,
No
and just
doubt.
produce like the most lasting,
Classics, bro.
soulful
Right.
stuff. And
All day.
I want to do the scholarship in that way,
No
to where
doubt.
it's stuff that you may have passed by or whatnot, but it comes together in this kind of, to go back to New Orleans, this
Right.
gumbo
Mm.
that is savory,
Right. Right.
uh,
Right. Right.
and
Gotta
brings
gotta
a
gotta get
level of,
that African okra in there though too.
yeah, that
But
that brings about a new perspective, a new understanding of one, your people, of course, but of yourself ultimately,
right, right,
in helping you to understand the ancestors and the ancestral mission. And then by you learning a bit about yourself in the process, and inspiring you to now move forward in a way that you're using your gifts that you developed in your life to help achieve the ancestral mission, and to bring us closer to our ideals. And so ultimately that's the thrust and the motivation of the work I do,
mm,
as a ancestral memory recovery specialist.
right.
you know uh,
One scholar that people, Dr. Amos Wilson, man.
of course, yeah,
Oh,
he's a
that's
category all of his own.
oh my gosh. Anyway, we're gonna soon end this. What would you say to young, wanna, inspiring people that want to get into comparative linguistics and stuff like that? What would you
Well,
uh
first and foremost, you got to learn basic linguistics. So historical
well,
comparative linguistics is a specialized field.
got you.
And relatively speaking, in terms of the number of linguists, it's not that many people who do it. And
I
so,
like that you said that, because even like Egyptology, they have different field, they have different
yeah,
sub, fields, and
yeah,
damn near every, yeah, yeah.
you're not going to be able to just hop into historical comparative linguistics. You got to learn, the basics,
Yeah.
just basic linguistics itself, learn about grammar, learn about syntax. You're going to have to take several courses on phonology and things of that nature. Um, and then you can jump into historical comparative linguistics. Um, but so do a course. And matter of fact, I'm going to create a course
Got you.
on my website
Plug,
for
plug, plug. There we go.
um actually I already uh how should I say? I already have a beginner's just kind of basics for linguistics,
Okay.
just sort of just
I
not
think I seen that.
historical linguistics, but
Okay.
I'm going to do a basic primer for historical linguistics, in the near future, within probably the next year,
Okay.
and
Cool.
so that you can get the basics on that, and then historical linguistics. So it's going to be depending upon, like, if you're trying to do this as a field of study, I would recommend you go to a university and get the full shebang.
Right,
But
right, right.
what I'm teaching is the basics enough to understand it, to be able to use it as a tool
Hmm.
in your arsenal for Africana studies in
Got you.
general.
Got you.
So not as a field, like, like you're reconstructing language families and dealing with, subcategorizations in terms of relationships between languages and things of that nature. That's not what I'm trying to get people to use it for. It's more
Right.
so for the um, for those who want to understand the terms of that you're finding in these African languages, like where does Ashe come from? And
Right.
we have a lot of people talking about Ashe and
Right.
Urugu and all this other kind of stuff, and to help to see the relationships between different African people
Yeah.
through the language. And so, like, if you are really trying to understand a group of people, then this is one way in which you can do that. And so
Yeah.
there's of course archaeology, there's art analysis, there's the whole rituals. You just may want to have a basis to understand just learning the language
Right.
itself. So you may want to learn Twi, you may want to learn Yoruba, you may want to learn Kikongo or
Right.
Chiluba, Amazu or Isizulu, for example. And this is just a segue into understanding the frameworks
Right.
so that we get more comfortable with
When dealing with
sounding African words.
right. Right. Right.
So yeah.
Gotcha. So my man, any last thing? What do you have going on? I know you mentioned that several key points in our interview that you have what you were working on in the future. So, uh,
Well,
any
right now,
as of in the near future, I guess.
yeah, like the nearest future is the publication of a text written by Dr. Shilimalima Mukinge out of the Congo. And the text that we're publishing under Madu and Della Press, which is my publishing company,
Right.
is Muntu wa Nzambi,
Okay.
man or human as God's special creation. And so that'll be out in May, probably end of May,
Okay.
beginning of June.
And they can get
And
they can go to your website or Amazon, right? Or go
they'll be able to go
directly.
to Amazon, but I'm going to also have a Madu and Della Press. I'm working on the website now.
Okay.
So you'll be able to find my books and then the books that I'll be publishing under Madu and Della.
Okay.
So
And also under this video, everybody, I'm gonna definitely drop all of his contacts that I know of. Like his website for sure, and his YouTube channel and things like that. Yeah.
appreciate it. So yeah, that's the next thing. And then I'm after that, I'm going to follow up with a book, called Chiluba Maweja, Yoruba, Orisha, and Egyptian Ak. And it's
Okay.
subtitled, an etymological exploratory journey, or study, you know, I think that's the full title. This is
Yeah, you be having that's one thing. You be
like,
having them long. I told somebody as I was writing down some of the books. I said, I saw be having them long titles, bro.
I have one book coming out that has a long
I'm like,
title.
oh.
So
Every one of them be some long titles, but at least you give us a good length,
yeah,
lengthy books to read and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, this one it's not even going to be that long, so I'm not going to like allude just a thick
but
book.
at least you're not writing. You're writing books. You're not writing pamphlets and
Yeah, I'm trying to get smaller on certain things for those who can digest that. So usually what people will do is they'll write the big text, and we know that takes a while for some folks. But then we'll take something from that and write a smaller text, that's more concentrated,
more direct,
that they can digest. So
right.
I've been asked to do that for a number of years. So I just may do that on a few things. Right. But and then if you want more details, you got the 600-page book.
I forgot to ask you about one person, Garfield.
Good brother.
That's on his scholarship.
I hit the thing again.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't see you. There you go.
Yeah, I hit the.
Yep, you did it again. Yeah. There we go. I got you.
So
Garfield.
I know that he's going to school dealing with theology, and so thus his introduction into a lot of these texts and scholars that you see him, introducing on his show. So I have yet to see written scholars, so I can't
He
give
has
an
a
honest.
he's like Dr. Umar Johnson, but except the school is the book, right? We waiting for that book.
Well,
The
I
book
think
to he waiting
that
for that book to come out. And I think he's getting closer to it because he put it out there in existence to some of the people that he interviewed. So
yeah, well,
yeah,
it's the issue is that he's waiting for, to
I'm a
my knowledge,
I'm a
he's
fan of him.
waiting
I'm just asking.
for
Yeah,
the prime opportunity. So remember that he was supposed to release it during the debate that he and Jabari was supposed to have, but because the pandemic came and the thing was canceled. So this is before everybody really started being comfortable with
right,
being on the Zooms and all of this other kind of
right,
stuff.
right,
Um, and doing the debates like live like this.
right,
So, it was supposed to be a Sonetta live event.
right,
And so he was going to premiere it then,
right,
so that he can build up momentum to it. And so I think he was still kind of holding off, waiting on the
right,
Jabari debate.
right.
But
But man, it seems
so
like
I have yet.
he's been waiting a while. It seemed like he because listening to his some of his interviews or whatever, I'm like, you might have to update that.
Yeah, but that's also a problem too. Like for instance, my Alluja Volume 2 was supposed to come out in like 2016, 2017. It didn't
Okay,
come out till 2020,
okay,
you
wow,
know,
got you.
and that's because I had to update some things, and then like I wanted to add a chapter here, but it required me to do some more research in this
Right,
area.
right,
So
right,
like I was already advertising this summer,
right,
Alluja Volume 2
right,
coming out, 2017,
right,
didn't come out to 2020. And
got you.
and so,
No, I
and I
got you.
had to take two chapters out. So two of
Mm,
the chapters that were supposed to be in that text is in
in the
the
dictionary.
the dictionary
Got
text,
you. Yeah, yeah.
because of sizing, like
Got you.
the printer, at a reasonable cost, could not print, that many pages. So it's already like almost 600 pages, but this is an 8.5 by 11 book.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
yeah.
isn't like a 6 by 9,
Yeah, no, I saw.
standard size.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so I don't know all the details, so I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
speak.
Do you think we right before I'm about to get off now, I'm asking you about a couple of this, but what do you think about? Do you think people like Brother Polite was like a kind of like a sad waste because he's an intelligent brother, but
I
but
can't say a waste.
no, I mean
It's just too much.
and
It's
I don't
just
mean
too
it in that
much.
harsh. I don't mean it that harsh. But I'm
It's
saying
just too
like
much controversy surrounding his
right,
name,
right. That
and and
you know.
and and,
And
and that's
People
just a
like
thing.
him and Umar Johnson, and you know what I mean.
Yeah,
You
like
see these talents, man, and it's like you see some diamonds in the rough, and it's like, man,
yeah,
yeah,
and they have the charisma,
right,
and they have the ability to, like, I'm just not that dude in
right,
terms of the charisma, because I'm very straight to the point. No,
right,
no,
right,
yeah,
right,
maybe, all right, but they have this,
right. They had
like
right,
this thing about them that
and
captures.
if they had the scholarship to go
If
with
they
it,
had the
wow,
scholarship
oof,
and
boy,
and
boy,
the
boy, there'd be a wreck,
and things,
well, a force,
it would be a wrap. But like,
yeah,
we can't get
no, no.
we can't get above at the same time.
Like I always said,
So
Brother Polite was like Master P with them albums. The books just
yeah,
coming out every.
but
uh,
again, he's see, I mean, regardless, you're responsible for your actions and whatnot in life, but
mm.
he's an individual, saying by his own admission, who had, was coming from the street life. And then he was introduced to Dr. York, and he apparently changed his direction and stuff, but he didn't go through a formal,
You can
you
tell.
know,
Yeah.
process to where, it could be honed and sharpened
Right.
and things of this nature. So he was approaching things from the way that he was,
And I and
living
it and
on
it,
the streets.
and he
And
can't say he didn't have that many chances, because he has a couple of chances when he started to be this celebrity, which is kind of like the new thing. You see Zion Lex jumping
yeah,
in there and trying to become a celebrity mentor as well. But
yeah,
then he messed that up, in a way. And so it's like, man,
the the
and then you
the,
got young pharaohs of the world. You got young pharaoh now that
yeah,
all
it,
yeah, it's a mess.
yeah,
It's a mess
but
over
they
there.
all have the same process. See, like, what's different for me is that I actually went to school. Now,
Right,
I didn't go to school for the degree of linguistics,
right,
but because I went to university, I understood
right.
and involved and been to conferences and had to write papers and got feedback
And that's why
from
that's why the
from
Armor Squad and Dagger Squad too, but the Armor Squad first and foremost, out of most of the other camps and groups out of the so-called conscious community, definitely caught my attention
yeah, it's
because
it's
they
it's a
were
little
talking about
different.
real,
So
right,
so that's why, like, when people critique anything that I say, it's water off my back, because
right,
that's every day
right,
in academia.
right, right,
But for some folks, because they never gone through that process and had
right,
their whole works shot to hell and written with a red ink,
right,
they
right, right,
take it personally and it be and they feel it. And it be a whole bunch of, because they just never went through that process. So
right,
anybody
right,
that you can name who we has some controversy behind their name and stuff like this, they all have the same path. They come
mm,
directly from the streets,
mm-hmm,
jump into scholarship,
mm-hmm,
and having gone through a process of learning and humbling themselves and doing research and having to present their research to other scholars, and get the stuff critiqued and stuff to this nature. So they didn't go through that process. They didn't go through any kind of organization to where they had to work for the betterment of the community
mm,
and had to adhere to rank.
right,
So there's a difference between those who've been through because they feel that they were this in the streets
right.
and they have to be this immediately come in. Like, no, you got to
For
start
for
from the
for
bottom,
for dummies, I got you.
and work your way up. And so a
Right.
lot of them didn't have that
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't have that process. And so you can see the difference between those individuals
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
those who went through more scholastic path,
Path.
you
Right.
know. And so it's not to knock them, it's just
Right.
that that you could just tell the difference between
Most definitely.
saying those individuals.
Most definitely. And that's the thing I always say, they don't take us, I want us to be taken more seriously. We want to be taken more seriously. That's why I like Ivan Sertima, even though I don't, you know, agree with every single thing, but he had a lot of points in his thing. But anyway, Um, yeah, no, I had one last question, but I totally forgot about it. But I guess it is not so important. But anyway, I appreciate you, man. We went over like almost 2 hours, almost 3 hours. This was a long interview. Was this the longest one you had
Oh
so
no,
far?
man! I come from a Hebrew Israelite tradition,
Oh, that's what's up. That's what's up.
so we
Yeah, I
we used
remember
to
that.
do we used to
Yeah, yeah,
have
yeah.
lessons 6-8 hours
Oh, I
long.
remember now. Thank you. That it's funny how, and what I noticed, I'm starting to learn myself. Man, I'm like I told you, I'm about to interview Dr. Kara Cooney, the Egyptologist that's got some fame, most definitely. And then I had interviewed Mandisa Thomas, and then I'm gonna interview Bada Laura and things like that. But only these brothers, a couple of these people, they want to charge for an interview. talking about 200 Combone, talking about $250. We never spoke personally, but I seen that he on his site, he's Combone is charging 250 for an interview, and then somebody else, and I'm not gonna name,
Mhm.
you just gonna charge me $200. I was like, nah, bro. For an interview, I'm like DJ Vlad, bro. I don't pay for no interviews, dog. But and it's not like it's. I understand if somebody like Dr. Karakuni or Bart Ehrman even,
Uh-huh.
may a little bit, but still, or and not only that subject, but the fact that some people locally or that don't hardly have any type of recognition or following, that they can hardly find a time to be interviewed. But then when I reach out to Cara Cooney or some of these other Vitalor or some of the other people, you even they get back with they get back with me, and it's kind of weird. And somebody else told me that sometimes it seems like the people that are moving and doing things, they under their work ethic is different than these. And far as they're never too busy to take on pretty much anything. It's I've been learning. It's crazy. Like I said, I'm still trying to interview a couple of people around here that's in the Black diaspora, and they haven't even. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, I appreciate you. Um, I hope at some point in time, a year from now or whatnot, we can have another interview or whatnot and update on
Indeed.
what's going on. I wish the COVID thing, I hope that dies down or whatever. I don't know if you ever made yourself out to Europe or whatever. Have you
Uh,
made it to the Titan? I know in the UK the Titan TV. I know that's a
we
big.
yeah, we were negotiating like all of this before the pandemic.
Okay.
Me actually coming out to Europe.
Yeah, because that
And
would
as a
that
matter
would.
of fact, I was on my way to Greece
Okay.
because my paper got accepted to an Egyptology conference that was being held in Greece.
Got
So
you.
I was supposed to be in Greece for, I think it was like in June, May
Okay.
or June of 2020. But that's when everything shut down. And so all my plans for 2020
Got you.
been shot to hell. But so I would have been in Europe, at least in Greece, in
Because I
2020.
definitely
But
would
now,
definitely would like to man, if you can get out here at some point in time in the future, that would be
yeah,
cool. If you was going to the UK, then we can somehow work your way out here or something like
yeah,
that. But yeah, that would be.
indeed,
But anyway, brother, I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm about to hang this thing up before it's too long for people to view, because I
indeed,
want them to kind of listen to this in entirety. But anyway, I salute you, man. Take it easy, and
appreciate it,
we'll talk in the future. All
indeed.
right,
Thank you for having me,
all right,
and peace to your audience, and y'all be blessed.
definitely.
All
All
right,
right, all
bye
right.
bye.
Let me see.